All right.
Melissa made me get this coconut ale that is just not
It sounds terrible.
masculine and not great either. So don't
Sound very good.
judge me.
Yeah, I mean they have coconut water, and that's not even that good. Let alone coconut beer. Yeah, there's no place.
It
There's no
basically
reason for
tastes
that.
like you put coconut water in beer.
Yeah, there's no reason for that.
Nah. Take my beer with beer, hops, malt, all the good stuff. All right, we are live. Welcome everyone to From the Ground Up. Thank you so much for coming on. Happy Snake Day or whatever the hell it is. I guess it's World Snake Day. So naturally we're gonna have a Ackie monitor. One of our only lizard episodes today of sorts. So sorry, we didn't really plan this one out. I didn't know it was World Snake Day until this morning. But thank you guys. I just want to say thank you to people that bought snakes. We sent out a few snakes today. So thank you to Raylon and Julie. And then if you guys are interested in any type of corn snakes, we have a bunch of corn snakes available. We haven't necessarily gotten everything up on the website yet, but everything is about ready. I'll probably get everything up by the end of the week, as far as there's a couple more clutches that are ready to go. And then if you guys would visit Theportcitypythons.com, you can see our snakes that are available there, as well as we have t-shirts available and all the stuff that goes towards keeping the podcast going and keeping the YouTube channel going. And just thank you guys for all your support. And that is pretty much it. Amazon links are down in the description. You've heard all this stuff before. But today we are going to have on Brett Bender of Fieldstone Herpetoculture. And so Brett works with Ackies, and he works with a bunch of Australian stuff as far as blackheads, roughies, all the cool stuff we all like. So Brett, thank you so much for being on, and give us a little overview of what your first reptile is and kind of how you got into this.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Happy World Snake Day today.
Of course.
We have snakes, so that's cool. So we'll keep it relevant, later. Ackie conversation, of course. Pretty much like everybody else. I grew up in southeast Wisconsin, so we have fields and lakes and rivers and all kinds of fun stuff to get out and play in. So we used to just go out in the fields, go down this rock quarry, go catch crayfish, catch fish. And they always had this.
Oh no.
Crawfish and all that kind of good stuff. So doing that, my dad, so he didn't really care. I brought home, he always kind of turned it into like a little educational lesson, saying, hey, check this out, this is what the scientific name is for these guys, and if you want to keep them for a little while, we'll release them and get them going. So we had a rabbit cage that we kept in the back of the house, which sounds really backcountry. It wasn't that backcountry, but it was like, this is back in 1978, probably, something like that, So it worked pretty good for keeping like a bullfrog for a couple days, or keeping a couple turtles, and build them a little pond and so on. So that was cool. And then we were fortunate enough to have this little store called Aquatic World downtown Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, where I grew up. And they had pretty good exotics, like little area there, like in the early 80s. I mean, they had like red-tailed boas, I'm sure like ball pythons, which back then were pythons. That was cool. They had a bunch of inverts and mammals and fish and all that kind of stuff. So, I started kind of keeping a little fish at the time. It was all over. So, I mean, what a little kid doesn't want to have a piranha to feed goldfish to, and so on. So we kind of dabbled with that a little bit. But my parents, they were kind of cool with the reptiles, but not too much. So the snake thing didn't happen for a while. My mom was pretty kind of put off by it. And to be honest with you, man, I was freaked out by snakes when I was a kid. I mean, I didn't like them. I didn't understand them. And I have this weird thing about wild caught like colubrids, just like out in the field. They're wily, man. It's not like a captive bred python. So
bitey,
yeah, musky.
I
saw you got musked over off of by a garter not too long ago, or a ribbon snake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're just they freak me out, and you don't really notice they're there. You're not looking for on one. You're like, oh my god.
Oh, you keep on breaking up.
My neighbors went out and catch wood. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay. So my neighbors would get out and they would catch them, and I kind of started getting better with them a little bit. So I started to kind of break down a little bit and start getting a little better feel. And then ball python, and that's where she's held a snake and actually started to kind of understand them a little bit more. So I liked them a lot more at that point and kind of got a better feel for them. I had a friend that passed away in high school and he had a green iguana. So me having, some kind of interest in reptiles and animals in general, his parents gave him to me to take care of. So we had him for quite a while, and he was cool. So that kind of started to break me into lizards a little bit too. So from there, it kind of just kept growing, to be honest with you. And up in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. I was up there and they had a little pet store too. So we went over and found a tokay gecko. So, went out and bought the biggest, baddest gecko you could keep.
Oh, you just keep on breaking up. I don't know if it's the room or something, but.
Is it getting any better? Hopefully.
Yeah, I don't know. It would just randomly freeze and cut out on us.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. That looks like I have a good signal too. So, so yeah, from there.
Oh, now you're pretty much totally gone.
Weird.
Okay, you're back now. Is there any room you can do it that gets better reception? Or you said it says that you have a good reception now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at. Oh, hold on one second. Let me try something here.
This will sound great on the audio only version of the podcast. I probably won't be editing it out, so I may just keep on talking like this while Brett does his thing on the other end. But I guess I will fill you guys in on a little bit of what's going on here. We have a bunch of clutches out. It's crazy. We are trying to get everyone feeding. We are trying to get everyone separated, sexed, staying up on the inventory list. If you guys don't know, we have a full inventory list on the snakes that we're raising up, the snakes that we bred this year, all of our pairings, and then as well as all of the babies that have come out. So you can kind of get a jump on some of the projects if you know what's going on and you know what you want to look for. And you can just hit me up and say, hey, I want something from that, or what would go good with this, or just for whatever reason. But we have AML buff stuff that's coming up. If anyone would be interested in anything like that, and just a lot of cool projects that we've shown if you guys follow us on Instagram and whatnot. It's hard with so many little baby colubrids. If you never had baby colubrids anymore or before, they're like super squirrely and wiry, and you open up the tub and then they just dart out and fall on the floor and try to climb the wall. If you saw my Instagram story today. So trying to get my hands on all those, sexing all of them and doing all that is a lot of work. All right, Brett, you think you're good on your end?
Yeah, I think I'm good. Yeah, hopefully let's try this out. And I switched Wi-Fi's and opened up my door. So hopefully that, if not, I just moved to the other bedroom or into the other room.
Okay.
The non-reptile. So, yeah, I think where I left off is just, so after kind of just, ins and outs as a child, just, catching stuff in the wild, went to transferred colleges, and our first year that we're living there, we were able to get a house and not live in the dorms, and that's kind of where things just really start to grow. Found another pet store. It seemed like everywhere I went, I found a pet store to like go hang out at and, go see what they bring in and everything. So, and actually at the same time too, we figured out that there was a reptile swap that was every third month, or every third Sunday, I think, of the month, down outside Chicago, called the Lee Watson's All Animal.
Explain exactly what a reptile swap is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. All animals. I mean, there was like chickens and random stuff just like running around and stuff. And it was interesting. And it was an interesting crowd too. Because I mean, we're at that point, we're talking like late 80s, early 90s. So it was a blast though. So we ended up going down there and finding some animals. I had no parents. I had no RA telling me not to keep an animal in a room at that point. So the first place we stayed at had a big walk-in closet, and that immediately became a room for a giant, like, I mean, it was like a 4.5, 5 foot green iguana that we built basket and shit at the end of the hall. And all my roommates were like, they didn't just kind of stayed away from that side of the house because, I mean, it was big, and I'm sure it was a male and probably just wanted to like mess with people. But he was pretty cool with me. Like, I fed him. So that was cool. And then we started keeping some boa constrictors. And then after that, discovered Burmese pythons. So, of course, you know, had to go for just jump right in and got labyrinth Burmese python and an albino female. So I raised those guys up for a while. I got a good clutch from the female. Not knowing how to incubate anything, I lost the clutch, and they did good. They just got big, and I was ended up moving around from house to house at the time too. So we ended up selling those guys off, and from there just kind of kept keeping random stuff that would kind of, you know, catch my interest, like leopard geckos. We bred those guys for a while, right when the leucistic ones came out. So started breeding leucistic leopard geckos, then the super hypo carrot tails, all that kind of goofy stuff. And did that for a while, and then moved to Chicago. And when I got down there, I found a house. I was living with my sister for a month, and I found like this weird little house. It looked like Mr. Miyagi's little toadstool house in the west side of Chicago, just covered in ivy and stuff. Really weird. Again, you know, had to deal with peach throats. Kept those for a while and started breeding some cluebreds, and then the ball pythons kind of started to come up a little, you know, where like spider ball came and some other. Sorry,
you're breaking up again.
Let me go in the house.
All right, go for it.
Yeah.
We've messed up about everything on the podcast, but we haven't had technical. We haven't had technical difficulties as far as connectivity. I don't know how. It seems like the most common thing that would happen to us, but we've been kind of lucky.
All right, let's see if this is better. I think I'm sit over here.
And if there's a child in it or whatever, it's all right. It's all happened before.
I went to a different room. I right to the router, so hopefully that will fix issues. All right, we'll try that now.
So the last thing I got was Toadstool House.
Okay. Sorry. So from there, we started to. I started keeping more monitors. Started doing some black tree monitors, peach throats, some roughneck black the monitors, and so on. So worked out good. It was fun. So I had those guys for a few years until we found a new house, and then same deal. Just kind of started to get into ball pythons a little bit. It's right when the spider ball python morph came out. So switch gears, started kind of collecting normal females, you know, with the whole idea of being able to breed like, you know, five females to one male kind of deal, and work with the combs and cool for the little something like that. I didn't get bored with. What is going on here? This is Google Fiber too, which is weird.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's really strange. Let me. For some reason, it keeps
because usually the Wi-Fi. It will at least down your video quality like once it's having connectivity issues, and it seems like your quality is not bad.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's going good, but then it just kind of laps in and out for some reason.
You want to try just audio for now?
Yeah, I can try that.
Let's see if that works.
Okay, I just switched back over to the Wi-Fi. For some reason, I switched off the Wi-Fi, but I just switched back over to it, so maybe that might be fixing it again.
What was that spider? That was probably yeah.
All right, sorry. All right, let's try it again.
So spider when that came in, was that
it was a weird. It was expensive. Yeah, it was weird because it was actually one of my friends who purchased the snake and then sent it to me, and it was kind of the same situation as we were talking about earlier. He's like, I'm going to send this to you. You got some females. Let's go ahead and, let's see if we can, start breeding them and see what we can do with them. So it didn't work, of course, it's, we ended up moving those guys out. But right at that time, that's when I switched over to Ackies and started kind of finding some different species. Switched over to Ackies and Womas pythons by about 2000. So then the Womas were going for like 1,500 a piece back then. It was much different time instead of 150 or 300 or whatever they're going for now. So that's kind of where I started getting some experience with those guys, with the Womas, and start working with those guys. I had 2.2. It's actually the same guy the Spider sent me down his pair. So then kind of was able to work with those guys. I just had a really cool male that I picked up from Rare Earth actually back in the day, and that male was beautiful. So went to both those females, produced 2 clutches off of those, and tried to figure it out. The egg situation, I got them to hatch, but I mean, the eggs they were brutal looking by the time they were done incubating. I mean, they were all moldy and falling down and stuff. But the little orange heads came out, so it was cool.
Do you know?
So hopefully next
know year. As of now, like what those incubation problems are? Because I know that people still have the problems today. It seems like no one has directly figured it out.
Which is really weird because I follow a lot of the different Facebook groups for Womas and so on. You'll see people with a beautiful clutch of white eggs and beautiful like orange heads, perfect, right? And then you see other ones that just kind of fall apart and they don't make it. So that's like a little bit slightly lower temperatures help them. And also keeping the humidity high, but keeping them dry is like kind of the key for those guys. Which, I mean, it seems like the sim containers should work well for that kind of. That's what I use for my Ackie monitors. I use a sim containers. So it keeps the moisture really nice, but it keeps them completely dry. So I think that's kind of the key. And when I did mine back in the day, I used the light diffuser with perlite. So it's not, I mean, to be honest, not much has changed since 2000 as far as that goes. And it may just depend on individual home environments and stuff too. I'm sure everything kind of changes from different areas and so on. But I know like was ADD Reptiles out in California, like he just had a beautiful clutch, and Justin Julander had a nice clutch this year that all hatched out really perfectly. Mm-hmm. And you see some great clutches that come out. So it's obviously not, I mean, it seems like they're all kind of doing the same thing, but they're not working out the same. So I'm not sure what's throwing it off. And maybe it's the pairs if they're not ready yet, or I'm not sure. It's hard to say.
Yeah. It's weird that in the age of, it seems like we've got so many things figured out that this animal that has been being bred since the 90s or something, but we still don't know how to incubate it and it seems like people can get them to breed easy, but it's the incubation that
they bred. I mean, when I bred mine back in the day, it was not hard. Granted, I was living in Chicago, and I think that makes a huge difference. Is just like where you're actually, where you're at. They just naturally feel what's going on outside. And when it starts getting dark out at like 4:30 in the afternoon, and it's like 20 degrees outside and 60 in your house, makes a big difference. I think being down in Texas, I mean, you're probably the same situation. It's like, what do you do? It's kind of hard to get things cooler sometimes during the winters.
Yeah, especially, I mean, we're doing colubrids, so I would love it for it to stay 55 degrees all the time, but that does not happen.
Yeah, I did hognose last year or the year before, and I was trying to figure out if I should cool them or not. And I ended up cooling them down a little bit, just like right out in the garage. But I don't even know if it made sense to do it or not. If I may have just shown them off of food for a little while might have helped. But it definitely, I got fertile clutches and they hatched, but at the same time, it seemed kind of pointless because it kept warming up so much. I mean, we got through January and it was like 70 degrees here already.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you can almost just food cycle them at that point. I mean, turn off the heaters, just slow down feeding. I mean, I've heard of people being successful that way.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a big key too. So we'll see what happens this year. I've got a bunch of pythons going. That should hopefully go. I'm going to try to cycle them. I'm going to try to do some night drops with them and do that kind of style. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Awesome. So let's get into the Ackies. So just give us an overview on where they're from and kind of their behaviors and size and everything like that.
Sure. They are from Australia, of course. It seems like they're mostly, and I don't know, I'm not an expert on basically where they're all from and where they break down for subspecies and so on. Looking at a map the last couple of days, they're from the Northern Territories. Two different, usually subspecies. There's the yellows and the reds, which it's hard to say if they're even yellows and true reds. I'm sure there probably are, but it seems like things have gotten muddy, especially since they've been here since last 25 years plus and so on. I work with the reds specifically, and my adults are maybe 18 to 22 inches full from like head to end of tail. So they're not big animals, and half of that basically is probably three-quarters of that's probably tail. So they've got good little stout bodies on them. Personalities, they're, I've seen people have them super friendly and they hold them and they're, great lap pets. And mine are not that way. I don't hold them at all. I didn't really raise them to hold them. Having two little kids, things just get so busy. It's hard to sit and try to tame a lizard. And sometimes not sure they really want to be tamed either. So they're cool. Their personalities are neat. They're like little bulldogs basically. They attack anything that goes in there as far as food goes. I can go in and scratch their heads and kind of move them around and stuff if I need to. If I do get a good hold of them, they'll probably get a hold of me pretty well. They do have a strong bite, and I've had stitches from a big male at one point. Where I got an adult, and I don't know why. I was just like, oh, Ackies are tame. So I went in there and picked him up, and he bit me in the knuckle, and then basically did like a gator roll and just ripped my knuckle wide open. So I had to go to the doctor and tell him that I got bit by a lizard, and then get a tetanus shot, and then stitched up on top of it. So that was awesome. Another good doctor story. But yeah, they're cool, man. They're great. They're great animals. They're really active, and that's one thing I like about them. Like I go out every morning, and they're always out basking underneath their heat lamps and come out and warm up. They're fun to kind of tease feed, and if you throw live food in there, like any kind of insects, they chase them like crazy, and they have a lot of fun with that. Mm-hmm. So personality wise, they're outgoing, and I like them a lot that way.
So how do you keep these guys?
I set my guys up, and I think it's pretty standard for pretty much the way everybody keeps them. I have a 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot cage. So it's 4 foot long, 2 foot deep, 2 feet tall. They use the height somewhat. I mean, I could have probably gone a little shallow, but what I was trying to make up is a real deep substrate bed for them because they like to dig too. So I set them up with the wood cage with that, and I have one basking light that's on them, and it's like a power sun. So I get that basking temperature up to about 130 degrees for 12 hours, and then I completely shut it off at nighttime. So it just whatever the room drops to, which my room is pretty warm. So it drops down to, probably like low or high 70s, low 80s, somewhere around there for ambient. So they'll come out every night. So they basically, after it cools down a little bit, they'll come out and hit that basking spot and just sit there and chill on that.
So for us,
them that, I get a thermal.
For us snake people, all right, that's really freaking hot. So what kind of what wattage what wattage light bulb would that be, and how does that work?
That is, I'm using like 150 power sun. I'm not sure if it's really necessary to have, there's debate about whether you really need like the UVA, UVB bulbs for them. I go with it because I figure it can't hurt them, especially having it on for just once, for half the day basically. So I shoot with that, and there's a bunch of different lights. People just use regular floodlights on them. And the way I do it is it's called a Reet stack. Frank Reetz was an old, shouldn't call him old. I think he'll get mad about that. He's a monitor breeder. He's like the godfather. He's been doing it for years. So he came up with developed a system called a Reet stack. So basically you use like 2x4s or some kind of support and then make a layer and then do it again and make another layer and then put another tile down. So I make mine out of 2x4s, and then I use actually 12-inch ceramic tiles. And I stack them on top of each other, and they kind of keep stacking up higher and higher. So I get it right underneath the basketball by, say, probably like 8 to 10 inches, somewhere around there. So she can, the pair can crawl up and bask. If it gets too hot, they just go to the next level, and it maybe drops a couple degrees, and then they can go to the next level a little bit lower, and it drops a couple of degrees. And they can keep working their way down and thermoregulate where they exactly want to be. And it's funny because they totally use them, man. They'll get up in the morning and they'll just go bask, or right after they eat, they'll get right underneath that hot lamp and just sit there and just digest their food or just warm up for the day. And then I'll come back a little bit later and they'll be a level lower, and then come back again a little lower, and they just kind of keep moving around. And they really use those Reet stacks a lot.
So are you keeping these guys in groups?
I have just 1.1 right now. So basically I bought 2 little ones and they grew up to be a pair. There's some theories about when you acquire them, if you get them about the same size and you raise them in a group, they should for the benefit of the group, it should develop into basically a male and then possibly like 2 or 3 females, however you're raising them up, or one male, one female kind of deal. Which is kind of cool. So I mean, if you get a trio, odds are, so if you get 3 of them, you should hopefully get a sex trio as they grow up and develop together as a group. So
wait, I'm confused. So it's not pre-fucking determined?
It's not. No. I mean, that's these are, and to be honest with you, from who I've sold them to and what I've raised, it's come true. So this is it's definitely, it's not, you can't just get them as babies and pop them or check like the hemipenes and see what they are. I mean, it usually takes them like 8 to 9 months to really determine if they're males or females. So it seems to be, it works that way. And I think it's basically like natural selection in the wild that they start to develop these groups, and that makes them, the most prolific, as prolific as they can be to keep their bloodlines and keep their species going.
All right, so that's wild.
So. See, World Snake Day, right? Learn some good stuff. But it is great though, because I mean, if you do get, if you buy 2 or 3 babies, you should be getting, you should get a nice little group of animals that is either going to be 1.1 or 2.2 or 1.3, whatever you're trying, how many animals you get.
Yeah, it's witchcraft, but
so it's a little witchcraft, Well, then it's a little confusing too about sexing these guys too, is that the females will breed the males a lot too. So you'll see a female courting a male, and my proven female does this to my male all the time. Still, I'll chasing her and breeding her in the spring, and then like a month or 2 later, my female is trying to lock up with him. So it's really confusing when they're younger and you're trying to figure out what you have, and they're all just trying to, they're mounting each other, and you're trying to figure out if you have a male or a female, and you're like, I don't know, you can't really tell, because some people really think that they have a pair, but sometimes
that's great. So these things
weird,
want to breed even when they shouldn't.
Exactly, and they breed young too. My female bred at about 18 months. So, and she dropped like 1 fertile clutch, and then that was it for that year. And then she came on strong the following year and laid 3 clutches after that. So they're interested in that way. I mean, it makes a big difference. So I mean, going back to the housing and everything, we can back up. We can get into breeding and sexing all these guys later. Raising these guys up. So the house wise, so I have about 12 to 18 inches of substrate in that cage. So it's real deep, and I use soil, like a real nice clean soil. It's hard to find in Texas down here. There's not a lot of good soil without a bunch of fertilizers and stuff in it. But I found a good natural soil. Then I mix in some play sand that's really sifted out nicely, and then cocoa fiber, like that eco stuff, I think. And I mix that together, and it makes like a really nice. You can make almost like a snowball out of it, basically, and like pack it real nice. And what that does, it allows them to burrow and make burrows, especially for egg laying. But they'll actually I'll put the reed sacks down sub level underneath the ground, and they can actually burrow down and make like little burrows. So you'll see like a little hole in the morning where they just find a spot, and they'll dig down and get in there. They may have looked a little graphic, by the way. We'll get into sex in them later. Sorry. Anyways, that's kind of the key, is getting the right substrate. And the nice part about it too is you can wet it down and keep it from getting really dusty. They do dig a lot, so I found that kind of helps from just like kicking dust all over your room and getting it out of the cage and so on. And I mean, that's really pretty much it. I mean, it's just really, kind of giving them the heat. They need some areas that like thermal regulate their body because they'll use it. And then a good substrate for them to dig in and burrow in. I mean, that female, she'll dig a hole and then get in there, lay her eggs, and completely pack it in. And it's, you would never know they're there if you didn't watch your animals and know she's laying.
So do you, as far as the soil goes and everything, is it like a bioactive setup, or you're just putting the soil in there?
Yeah, I mean, I'll pre-mix it. So I'll go get the soil, I'll get the play sand, and I get the eco fiber, and basically just start mixing it up nicely. So you want to have that really nicely spread out. So basically, they said, from what I've read, is you really want to kind of make it in so it can pack into a snowball and kind of hold its form to allow for those burrows. So if it's too much dirt and it dries out too much, it'll just kind of keep falling on itself. Same with the sand, and the eco fiber stuff's pretty nice. It definitely keeps moisture really well, which is a big key with keeping these guys, because they'll actually, if it gets too dry, they won't be able to shed properly, and they'll start losing toes and losing tips of tails and stuff because they'll get stuck shed.
And that seems like an uphill battle when you're keeping a hot spot of 130.
It's yeah, it is, but it's not too bad. I'll get in there and I have one of the pesticide spray containers that you get from Home Depot, so I'll get in there and spray them down really good. Or I'll just take a gallon of water and literally just pour it in their cage, and then get in there and just start mixing it all back up again and laying it out nice and flat. So yeah, it is a battle, but at the same time, I think with my wood cage that we had built for them, which is basically just like a sliding glass, plexiglass on the front. It really holds humidity well, and it's I keep my guys fairly humid, not like damp or wet, but you open it up and you can kind of feel it coming back at you. But it really helps with their sheds. It really helps. I mean, their color looks great. They're not always just dusty, dirty looking little guys.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely helps with them. And like I was saying before, with their toes, if they go through a shed, if they don't get the shed off their toes, it cuts off the circulation basically, and their toes will just start dropping off. And you'll see that in a lot of Ackies that aren't kept properly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy. You gotta kind of keep an eye on those guys.
The chat's asking the enclosure. So did you custom build it yourself, or is it a pre-made?
It is custom built. My next door neighbor was a cabinet builder, and he just happened to live here for like 6 months and rented the house next to us. So yeah, just one day I gave him some dimensions, and he knocked it out for us. I'll show it to you if we had better connection, but unfortunately, I'm in our bedroom and
we're stuck.
My herp room. So that kind of sucks.
So there you go. Sorry. Find a neighbor that's a cabinet maker.
Yeah, and it's real basic. I mean, if you picture like the old snake cage in the day. Everyone kind of made them out of plywood. So it's basically just, a nice big rectangular cage that's 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. The one thing I did do is I put the plexiglass higher off the ground. So it gave me that big area on the bottom, like a big reservoir or a dam basically kind of built up. So I could really pack that soil down there and give them like 12 to 18 inches on the bottom.
Awesome. So what we
actually, I think mine might be actually 3 feet now that I think about it. It's about 3 feet tall today. So I went pretty tall with mine. I don't know if they really need that much. I've seen people actually not use soil and use like mulch and then have like a nest box for the females to lay in. But I don't know. If I'm going to give them the space, I'm going to give them some good natural substrate to dig around and play in.
Mm-hmm. So we didn't hit on feeding. So what's their diet?
Diet is cool. The best part about having Ackies is they have a very variable diet. So you basically feed them insects, maybe dubia and crickets, mealworms to start with. Chicken hearts. So I should go to the store and get like a little tray of chicken hearts, which are like $1.29, and then just slice them up.
From where?
From HEB.
What?
There's chicken hearts at like every grocery store.
Yeah.
That's like
at HEB.
Common thing.
Yeah, I guess so. People like to wrap them in bacon, I guess, and deep fry them or something. I'm not from the South. I've just heard.
Oh,
probably right next to the pig's feet and
and the gizzards, fried gizzards and everything. It is all right there. I will say I was a little freaked out by it at first. It's not that bad. It's like they're just like little. They're like these little hearts. I don't know, it's weird. But you get like a nice tray of them and they're like $1.29. So what I'll do with those, I break them down in like little snack bags and I'll freeze 5 of them and then do like another 5 and freeze them all together and make like little bags and put them in my freezer. So it works out pretty good for that. Yeah, we have a little deep freezer in the garage that my wife's been bugging me to get a deep freezer for the house, for the family, so that we can, start making pre-ready-made meals and go and get like frozen meals for everybody. Extra storage. Yeah. So she came home, she's like, "You bought us a freezer," and I kind of keep some of these things a little hush hush, She goes and opens it up, and it's just full of dead rodents. I was just like, "Well, you didn't want them in our freezer, right?" So it worked out pretty good. She was a little, not upset by it, but she didn't get her freezer yet. But we so it works out pretty good. So yeah, the chicken hearts are in there, and then little fuzzy mice or crawler mice. When they're smaller, you go from pinkies all the way up. The biggest I'll ever feed them is basically like fuzzy mice. They're crawlers. Even as adults, they don't need anything bigger. And then I'm trying to think what else we got. Oh, scrambled eggs. They love scrambled eggs. So like in the morning, we're making them for the kids and such. You just put a tray of scrambled eggs and they just come down. And
that's so funny.
And they love them. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's what's really nice about them is that you have a nice varied diet for them. So you're not feeding them insects every single day or mice every single day. You can break it up. So I mean, I'm feeding them mice twice a week. I feed them scrambled eggs maybe twice a week or once a week. Insects every other day or something like that. And there's a lot of times I'll go in there and they just won't eat either. Yeah, as adults right now, you're like, I'm good. So it's kind of nice. So they're not, it's not as much work as it seems like, some of the other lizards are. They'll pick their battles and not eat some days, and some days they'll just come and eat, and then that's pretty much it.
But they're 100% carnivores?
They are insectivores, carnivores. So, between the dubia stuff, they go for those, and then beyond that, they go strictly for, eggs and the chicken hearts and so on like that.
Now, is there a concern between, like, say, chicken or egg is obviously pretty lean, and then you try to get like a rat crawler in there that's fatty, or
exactly. So that's what's nice about, I think it makes it so easy for those guys. I mean, to have the varied diet in there, it's just my guys have really thrived on having that kind of diet. And I'm sure there's some people that probably feed, mostly rodents and stuff like that. But my guys, and for me, it's a lot easier than trying to thaw out something every day, every other day to feed these guys. So I feed them with my snakes, and then once other time between the week with the mammals.
And you don't have to like separate them or anything like that when you feed them?
No, I do watch them because they will fight over food sometime. Not overly aggressive, but they'll get up there and get kind of mouth to mouth if the female has it, because they're kind of slow eaters. I mean, they take a whole prey item and they just they get in their mouth and they kind of work it down a little bit. If there's something hanging out, the male might try to grab it. So when I feed, I spot feed all the time too. So if I'm feeding a dubia, I watch it go in its mouth. I don't just throw them in a cage and be like, here's some dubias for you guys to chomp on it. And if you don't, reduce them else, So I go in there with a tong and I feed them directly every single one of those. So I only have 2 of them, so it's not that hard. That way I know my female's eating, I know my male's eating, I know how much each of them are getting that way. The scrambled eggs, I'll start them and kind of feed them and keep them separated, and then they'll just go down to the plate and brunch it out together.
That's pretty sweet.
So yeah, it works. It's pretty good.
So now I guess we can get into a little bit of the breeding. So obviously you keep them together, but are you doing any like noticeable drops on purpose, or?
Nothing more than what naturally happens in that room. So we built a room in our garage. I used to have, and this is kind of when I started to get a little more. It was like that house my sophomore year in college where I got a little freedom, I talked my wife into building a small room in the garage, so it's all insulated, and we have AC and heat hooked up to it. So when the lights go off in the winter, it's still, still in the garage, but it has some heat to it, but it's definitely cooler because during the summertime in Texas, I mean, it's hot no matter what. So I think it's just a natural drop that they're feeling out there. So that seems to be working pretty good. Hi, can you want to go in the other room, buddy? Hi.
Oh.
Say hi real quick. You're going to go in the other room, buddy. Hold on 1 second. It's okay. You want to just come grab it? You want to just grab it now? Perfectly. He's that's our 2-year-old Bo. He has these things called the terrible twos right now.
Oh yeah.
Dude, they're terrible. Our 6-year-old never had them before, and he's off the charts right now. So this is new to us. So yeah, it's been awesome.
I think that's our first kid appearance on the podcast. We've had some dog appearances, but that's our first kid one.
yeah, that's little man Bo. He's the future. He's the future of our hobby. Keep him going. So breathing wise, so I turn my lights on 24 hours, so they're on 12 hours on, 12 hours off. So as they drop, they're just naturally getting cooler than those winter months, and it's kind of funny. So when it started to warm up a little bit this year, I was kind of watching my breeding records from last year. And they bred basically they started breeding the same week almost as they did the previous year. And they laid their first clutch within 7 days of last year's clutch, which is pretty cool. I don't know. So I'm curious to see what next year does and see if they're really that dialed in, and they just keep doing the same thing. So after that, the male starts courting the female. They lock up a lot, and they lock up for a long time. So the male just kind of come over, get on the female, and they'll be locked up for a while. It's not aggressive. There's no biting or anything else going on like that, so you'll just see them kind of just laying there. And so it's really good that way. They're just not they're easy to keep together. I mean, my pair have not had any issues with that. Then the female will go through, kind of start producing eggs, and she just swells up. I mean, you'll notice her get like a giant oval, she'll get really big. So she fattens up. You're like, okay, great. And then she'll start basking a lot too. So you're like, all right, this is looking good. She's feeding really good. And then she'll kind of stop feeding a little bit. And start to kind of slim down, and those eggs just they rearrange basically. And then you'll see her start to kind of dig around the cage. She'll kind of start burrowing and finding some different little spots to get into. And then basically you'll just notice her. She'll come out and she's half of what she used to be. I mean, they just it's like a snake when they lay their first, lay their clutch. You're like, wow, that was a lot of mass that just came out. Last averaged about 7 to 9 eggs per clutch. The first clutch this year was 14 eggs. So she doubled her clutch size in her third year breeding, which was interesting. And her next clutch was 12 eggs. She hasn't laid her third yet. I was expecting it like a week ago, and it's not coming out yet. So I'm kind of waiting to see if she is going to lay a third or if she's just getting laid like 2 big clutches and that's it for this year. So yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to see.
Do you know the typical as far as average clutch size and clutches?
It's all over. I've seen it all over the place. Some people are like, they'll have 5 clutches a year and they'll have 7 eggs, and kind of go through. So it seems like I've seen anywhere between like 7 eggs up to 18 eggs, something like that, for real big clutches. I was really surprised when I started digging and they just kept coming out. I was like, there's another one. There's another. It's kind of fun. You literally, you unearth them, so you get in the cage, you got to kind of find out where they are, and you start brushing everything away and brushing away. And I was like, oh, found one, and you might find a couple rocks in there and you're like, it's not them. And so also you find one, you're like, okay, cool. So you pull it out. I always pull it out of the cage. I put it right down in front of me on the carpet, mark it with a pen to mark the top for it. And then you kind of start pulling the next one out, and then the next one, and they pack them up. And like, she usually finds like a corner or like a piece of plywood or something to press up against too. And you just kind of keep working it out, and you just keep, one by one, pulling them out. So it's kind of interesting. It's like so different. I mean, I've bred snakes, for so many years and everything. Even like leopard geckos, everyone had a nest box before. So you open a nest box up, and you're like, got a clutch. Awesome. There they are. This, you got to kind of go in there and start digging around for them, trying to find them and hope they didn't get too wet or, only having 2 animals and being home a lot. I get to keep an eye on them. So you can tell right when she lays a clutch. So it's like, you just hope you're not out of town. So,
well, I feel like it's different with leopard geckos. You know that there's going to be 2 eggs, so you're digging around looking for 2 eggs.
And they're usually right on top. Well, if you have a nest box for sure. And it's like every 21 days too. And she seems to lay hers about every 46 days. Somewhere around there has been her average in between clutches. So,
wow. So they get up the size, she'll put weight back on though that quickly.
They just start feeding right away. They just right off the bat, I'll go in there and I'll feed her some like real small prey items, kind of like a snake. Have you guys double clutch corns at all, or you guys double clutch your animals?
This year, not on purpose. He doesn't like doing it on purpose.
Yeah,
I keep my females in with, so
you keep them smaller. Okay,
yeah.
I don't necessarily agree. I mean, it's to each their own, whatever. But
yeah,
it's kind of the same principle. If you were to double clutch an animal, you basically start feeding them right away and kind of get back to size. But this is natural for them. I mean, they're going to lay multiple clutches a year. I mean, they're highly prolific little animals. So her body is producing them right off the bat. So we just get in there and start feeding them again and kind of keeping an eye on them. So it'll be interesting to see, how she holds up. I mean, she looks awesome right now for having 2 big clutches this year. She's nice and chunky already again.
So since her first 2 were big, do you expect the third one to be smaller, or can it just be is there any connection between each one?
I don't know. Last year she was within an egg of her first 3 clutches last year, where it was like 8, 9, and 7 or something like that. So they were kind of all over the place, but they were very close to each other. So having a 14 egg and a 12 egg, I'm kind of curious to see if she does lay another clutch, what that's going to come in at. Right. I was surprised. I kept pulling them out. I'm like, wow, this is 14 baby Ackies. It's a lot of little dudes.
That's interesting.
That's so much different than double clutching corns, because you double clutch corns. The first clutch is 20 eggs. The second clutch is 8 eggs with 6 slugs, and
right, exactly.
It's a very diminishing return.
Right, that's what I just assumed for those 2. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, they'll kind of keep going. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. I'll keep you all posted.
Yeah.
Oh, there has to be some correlation, right? I don't know. In positive, negative, same. There has to be something. They can't. I would think just so. Totally random.
I would think that she's probably going to have her clutches from here on out are probably going to be about the same size of the first 2 from this year. I'm assuming if she's laying bigger clutches, she should continue to lay bigger clutches like that. And she hasn't grown a whole lot from between the last 2 years. I mean, they grow fast. It's crazy. So I mean, within 18 months, they're like breeder size. So, and then at that point, they don't really keep getting bigger. My male kind of fattens up a little bit, where he kind of keeps getting bigger, and but he doesn't eat all the time. It's kind of weird. You'd think that to get an obese snake, you feed them a lot, right? So you just kind of feel like I feed this animal like a large rat every single week, and I got a big fat one. But this male, it's like they get porky and they're just real stout little animals, and he'll eat like 2-3 times a week at the most. So and he'll skip a couple days in between and not eat. So, right. So it's kind of interesting the way they put on body weight and keep their body weight. So with her, she just bounced back. So yeah, we'll be curious. I'm curious to see. She's kind of just going off like my data just from watching when she was laying clutches the last couple of years and doing the math. I expected her to lay like last week, but again, maybe after the third clutch, she'll take a little break and then lay again. So we'll see.
And that's happening in the summer, or does it start bringing the spring? So do they spring breed or winter breed?
She started breeding. I don't know. I left my phone in the other room. She laid her first clutch in March, and they're still incubating now. So right, yeah. It's I've been checking. I've never usually this neurotic about checking eggs, but for some reason this clutch has been going, and they look awesome. They look great. But I mean, I go in there every morning. I wake up and look in there. I'm like, and you'll just see it's weird because like the first ones will just come out, and then the second ones will just kind of stick their heads out and kind of sit in the eggs for a while. And it takes them a long time. Like they don't all come out, or they don't all pip at the same time. So like over last year, like when the clutches were hatching, it'd be over 10 days. So the first one would come out, like the last one would come out 10 days later. So it's a long
That's process. So weird.
Yeah, it's
all right. What's is the laying process like snakes? Like does she take a while to lay them? And that's why there's
not, I mean, it's always a night. I mean, she'll get in there like a snake does. And it's like, and I've caught her in the action too. It is slow. I mean, it's definitely slow, but it happens in one night for sure. I did catch her laying it, and it's like, when you watch a snake lay her eggs, you can see them like going through the process.
Yeah.
And it was hard to tell from that. Maybe it was just her angle, but I could see that she was sitting on a clutch and she was still working on it. But it wasn't like a snake where they're kind of constantly kind of working on getting their clutch out. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. The incubation process is long. I mean, last year I averaged about 100 to 110 days for them to hatch out. Wow. And for some reason, I started reading a lot again this winter, just kind of reading up on about incubation. So people said to incubate a little bit lower. So I dropped it to 85 degrees. And I don't know if that's the reason why, but like I'm at like 110, 112 days right now in this clutch. So I won't be surprised if they go like 120 days or something like that before they pop out.
But the fun thing is you get another clutch. I mean, she lays another clutch while you're waiting for the first one to hatch. So it's still kind of exciting.
Exactly, which was like about a month and a half after she laid her first clutch. So it'll be another month and a half after this. So if they come out, another month and a half, we're talking like September. And then the clutch, another one after that's like October.
That's a long ass breeding season. Half your year.
Yeah. It is. And it's incubation. So you're just kind of just sitting waiting on these clutches, and it's just, and I have this whole clutch is already spoken for. So maybe that's the other reason. Usually they're not spoken for. So I'm kind of like, whatever. We'll see what, whenever they come out, I'll get them started. But yeah, it's a little interesting that way. Usually I don't have them pre-sold before, they're pre-sold, and then, I didn't collect payment on them because who knows whatever's going to happen with the eggs.
There must be
my dumb luck,
There must be some type of evolutionary reason for, because corn snakes lay clutches, and then when the first clutch is hatching, that's when the female will lay her eggs. She'll usually have her second clutch right when the other clutch is hatching. So it lines up like that as well in corn snakes.
That is interesting.
So there must be
something.
Just kind of keep it going. Maybe I guess the first one gets wiped out, the second clutch is right there to pick it up right afterwards. Something finds it, digs it, eats it up. I mean, it is Australia. There's all kinds of gnarly stuff out there. Probably digging up little Ackie egg dens and so on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And how do you go a little bit more into incubation? So you kind of mentioned sim containers before. But that whole method and everything behind it.
Sure, no problem. So what I've been using, I've got a couple of small little wine fridges. So that's what I'm using for my incubators. So I just gut them out basically to put heat tape in there, set them up to a rheostat. So they work well. They worked well for me so far. I've used them for the hognose last year, which was awesome because I had to buy the 2 different temperatures. So I had to buy a second incubator and deal with that whole thing. But for those guys, I set them up about 85 degrees. And the sim containers are really nice because they actually, have you seen, what they look like?
I don't know what a sim container is.
So So basically, it's like a Rubbermaid a tub that these guys made. They have a little layer that's like almost like a mesh, like a plastic mesh that goes across them. So you can paint all the substrate below that mesh. So you keep your eggs completely dry and out of the substrate.
Oh.
But on the bottom, you could go straight water with them. I don't do that because if I'm moving them around, I'm always afraid you're going to slosh water. I shake a lot. Not really, but you know, pull them out. I could bump into something or a kid runs up and I just slosh water on the eggs. And don't want to deal with that. So I use perlite and I just soak it. I mean, I put a bunch of water in there. It's not like when you're putting the eggs in the substrate, there's always like the 1-to-1 ratio that you look for volume to weight. And, you don't have to worry about any of that with these guys. It's pretty nice. So you basically fill up the bottom half of the container with perlite and I just add a bunch of water in there and get that really nice and wet, kind of shake it up good. Then you put that mesh layer down on top, and then they have little rails that run vertically through the box or horizontally, whichever way you turn it. And then you can put your eggs in between there. So it's pretty nice. They have like little guides, and it keeps your eggs from rolling back and forth.
I was gonna ask, are they small enough to fit in like the leopard gecko version of the sim containers, the little circular one?
They're probably about twice the size of that egg. Are you talking about the one little slot for the eggs that go in there? They're probably they'd fill that up completely. I mean, they're pretty good size. So yeah, compared to leopard gecko eggs, they're probably like 3 or 4 times the size. So they're pretty good size eggs. I mean, they're all, full grown. They're about that big, I'd say.
It's a lot of eggs in that little animal.
It is, I know. And when it comes out, you're like, it's hard to believe that those are all in there. That's why I was surprised at the 14. And the eggs grow a lot too. I mean, they've doubled in size since I've had them, which I don't really remember snake eggs doing that quite as much. I mean, they fill out and stuff.
No.
But these things, they really don't grow, do they? I mean, they fit right in there.
Okay.
So yeah, it's interesting because so the eggs have definitely I've definitely noticed it with this first clutch where they're getting way bigger than what they started off at.
So that obviously factors in when you're deciding how many to put in each container, since they're going to get bigger.
It's I use the small ones, I think. So they're probably about 4 inches by about 8 inches. So you can fit quite a few in there. So I fit all 14 in there without using any of the outside. It just runs right down the middle.
Oh, okay.
And then when these guys hatch out, what are you keeping babies in?
So I basically set them up exactly like the adults, but I use 20-gallon long slide and screen tops. Works really well. So I'll give them about 8 inches of the same substrate soil that I have, build them little reed stacks, and then put a little spotlight right on top of that stack for them to thermoregulate. And basically, so exactly like the adults. And it's amazing. I mean, they come out and they're just miniature little versions of the adults. Their pattern's not as bold. They usually like their patterns kind of have like a little more white spots, yellow spots on their backs compared to the adults, kind of get more blackish. But they just come out, they're ready to roll. I mean, they come out, I put them in like the 20 longs and they start feeding within like 2-3 days later, it's pretty awesome because you get some like small little crickets and throw them in there and they just perk up and they're fast and they'll jump on a cricket. And if it's a little big for them, they'll just like wrestle it down and be jumping around on top of the cricket while it just drags them around, but they get them down. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, food wise is exactly the same. It's just miniature version of the adults.
Do you have any issues feeding?
No, I've never. I mean, I keep an eye on them. I usually, before when I had 7 eggs, I kept them all in like basically 120 long. So this year I'm gonna have to split up the clutch, which would be a little different, but when I have them in a group of 7, they're so small and they curl up small. They're social with each other. When they're small, they'll lay on top of each other and they'll hide with each other. So if they find like a good piece of cork bark or underneath the reed stacks, they all get in there together. And so you'll lift it up and you're like, well, there's 5 of them. And then you have to go on the scavenger hunt trying to find like the other 2 because they'll get in there and they burrow, and it's amazing. They get all the way to the bottom of somehow the substrate and just get themselves. I always freak out. I'm like, oh, it's gone. I don't know. I lost one, and they have to go around and dig for them and try to find them. And then they'll pop out and you just pull them out, and yeah, they're cool. They're just miniature little Ackies. I mean, they're tiny. They'll sit like on your fingertip basically, from like the size of your pinky.
That's crazy.
Sit on it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So they come out and you're like, oh, look at that. Little baby Ackies. I get a kick out of it every time it still happens. I'm sure you guys do with the snakes. Every time you see like babies come out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
The one thing we don't have is we don't have the Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I've got some face fighters too. I got carpets. I understand all that. Yeah, the big difference. We don't have the genetics, for like you guys get to do some cool breedings and you like the whole mystery of what's going to come out of the eggs. I mean, we get Ackies and it's still cool and still,
what is the Ackie market?
It is fun breeding genetics.
What's the Ackie market like?
It's pretty solid. I mean, there's a lot of people like them. To be honest with you, last year I feel like I traded more than I sold overall. I kind of just went through a spurt.
No, it's not. I'm keeping him from doing that.
It's a good move. It depends what you want to get to. And last year I used it to get into some projects that I wanted to get into. And I also used it to get into some animals I wasn't sure if I really wanted to work with, So, if someone offered a trade, I usually kind of went for it for the most part. I did actually sell quite a few of the babies. I mean, I had 3 clutches last year. I mean, I had like 26 babies last year. So it's a lot to sell just, individually or in groups and so on. But I did sell probably well over half and traded over half. But it gave me a chance to get into rough scale pythons. So, I mean, I traded a clutch basically plus some money for a pair of adults rough scales, which turned out to be 2 males. But which will maybe come in handy.
Still a pair. It's still 2.
It's still 2, right? So yeah, so that worked out great. But I have 2 really cool rough scales. And I also got into some Angolans, and then I have 2.2 rough scales right now. One's on breeder loan, one female. One female I bought after I realized I had 2 males, which was a 2017 baby. So my males are like 2013 and 2015, I think, somewhere around there. So I mean, they're big adults at this point, good size. So this little female, I mean, she's awesome, but she's small. I mean, it's gonna be years before she's ready. So yeah, we got those guys, and then the Angolans. I was able to trade for a big female, and I found a lone male and bought that. So that was able to get me into that project. I did a trade with Justin Gelander for some inland carpets 2 years ago. My first clutch, the first ones I hatched out. So I was able to get an inland. So I kind of use it to get into some clutches and get into some projects I want to work with. I think I've hit a point now where I don't have a ton of room. So
I didn't realize trades work across animals. Not work, but I didn't realize it happened across. I thought like you were only trading leg for legs, no leg for legs. I didn't.
chicken heart for chicken heart. It's amazing what people offer you for trade. I was offered trailers. Some guy offered me trailers, offered me tires. I was offered some tires for some. And he just had like a huge pile of tires in his yard. Yeah, right. He just was like, I'm like, I don't know if I need tires. He's like, yeah, here, I got all these tires. And he literally had stacks of tires in his backyard. I'm like, I don't know what to do with tires. Man. He's like, I got rims for him and everything. And I'm like, I'm good. But, I mean, I have a car and it's not that great. Yeah, exactly. And like handguns. I mean, just all kinds of random stuff.
What?
No. Yeah. So if you mention you'll take trades, just be ready. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm good. We're good. Don't worry. So it's pretty interesting what people offer up for it.
Wow, we've never
but I did get into like, yeah. There you go. Throw them, put up for trade and see what happens.
We don't have snakes that are expensive enough to warrant a gun trade.
To warrant a gun.
No. There's a lot of inexpensive guns out there now. Not that you want them, probably.
Yeah, I don't think I want an expensive gun. But
so the market's solid. I mean, for how long they've been around, they've held their value pretty well for the most part. I mean, I sell mine individually for like $300 a piece. If you buy multiple, like $250, and that's usually kind of where I stop my breaks at for the most part. So pair for $500, a trio for $750 or something like that. But they're it's held itself pretty well. Obviously, they used to be more expensive, but never crazy money, I don't think. I'm trying to think when I had them originally. I mean, I don't think they were even that much. They may have been closer to $750 or something, $1,500 a pair or something like that, way back in the day. But for how prolific they are, and the one thing I have heard is for how prolific the females are, that they don't breed for a very long time. They'll breed a lot when they're younger and then kind of stop. So I need to start holding some back as well too, and probably start trying to buy some other unrelated bloodlines too, and so I can kind of get ready for the future for that. If that is the case,
that was definitely a question I had as far as bloodlines go. I mean, there are probably only so many founding animals.
Very true. Yeah, I think that's part of it, and who knows where all those animals are at this point. Obviously they're not still coming into the country. Some people are imported from Europe and so on. But yeah, I don't. To be honest with you, I'm not really that up on the bloodlines. Mine are from rare. My male's from Rare Earth, and my other one's from Mark Deutschman, I think his name is, down in Florida. He goes by Captain Mark. I can never remember his last name. He got some from some imported animals he brought in from Germany or something like that. So mine are, unrelated as far as that goes. But it's funny. A lot of people that buy pairs and they raise them up and breed them. So bloodlines get deleted pretty quickly when that happens. So I try to just go out and find two different breeders and hope that they're not really related. So I'm sure if you really got into it, it's like anything. I'm sure you could go out there and really find it all. Rare Earth has got a great line. I mean, they've been known for that. But a lot of people buy them and then they breed them, and then or they breed them to something else, so they're still Red Earth at that point. So.
Yeah. It's, I guess, on par with a lot of the Australian animals. I mean, we only go back so far because you end up, in a dubious place.
And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier about the reds and the yellows, like the two different subspecies. And I'm sure then there's I've heard people saying, I mean, if you look at a yellow and you look at a red, you can kind of tell the difference. If you have them kind of mixed, you can't tell the difference. I'm sure some yellows look like reds and some reds look like yellows. So I'm sure over the time, and when they're babies, they probably look closer than the adults do. So, I'm sure over the time those bloodlines got muddied up from the subspecies being bred together, like carpets. That people start breeding some diamonds into the jungle and everything else.
Right.
And then someone didn't, and they still got still has diamond line in there at some point. So I just found the animals I liked, and the adults are pretty. So and they were sold to me as reds, so I just went with that.
Now I don't really know as popular as they probably should be. I mean, more people probably have Savannah monitors, unfortunately, or black throat monitors or something than
Why
Ackies.
Do you say unfortunately?
How many? Because they're just so much bigger and not great pets. But Ackies are obviously
they're also Savannahs are also $20.
Yeah.
Oh dang.
So yeah. So it's that part. The black throats are tougher to get to, but they don't have that. They don't have that big monitor feel that people want to go for. I mean, it's like a Burmese python. I mean, go look on Craigslist now. You can probably go find a bunch of Burms that people thought were cool, and they're 18 inches or 2 feet long and stuff. And it's the same, same with those bigger monitors. I'm sure. I've never kept them. I've never had the space to keep them. I mean, if you look at one, I mean, think about what do you have to keep one of those things in and feed it, and
20-gallon tank.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's all you need, and then you're good to go. And and a heat rock, and you're all set. But they are monitor species. I mean, you do have to keep them warm. I will say way more low maintenance than I thought they were going to be. I don't know if my dirt has become like bioactive, but they just don't really smell that much. They're just not that dirty animals. The one thing that's kind of frustrating is that every time you feed them, they do go to the bathroom. I usually on top of that top tile right underneath the heat lamp, so that's always pleasant. Kind of open it up. It's like a stank. I mean, it's but then it just wipes out or it dries out. But if it's like fresh underneath the heat lamp, it's definitely, you'll kind of notice it. But like on an everyday, there's not an odor that comes from, not anything more than the snakes do or anything like that. Or, we have tortoises too. And those are dirty animals. Those are they're messy animals for sure. So, I mean, as far as that goes, they make great animals. They got great personalities, and they should be kept by a lot more people. But they do get fairly good size, and they need some space as well. You can't really just keep them in a 20 long their whole lives or anything, even as singles. And the bigger ones are cool.
I haven't heard of many people who are like specializing in Ackies. Is there an Ackie guy out there somewhere who breeds just Ackies or has the nicest Ackies or anything like that?
No one that I really know that specializes in only Ackies. I know people that specialize in dwarf monitors. So I think once it's it's kind of like carpet pythons. You're like, I've got a pair of jungles. And it's like, well, then I gotta get inlands, and then I've got to get Darwins, and I've got to get Bredli. So it's kind of the same thing with the dwarf monitor species. There's so many small, and there's some really cool ones too. I mean, I'd like to get into them. I just don't have the space for it to get into them. So there's a few guys that have really great stock, but they have a lot of other animals too at the same time. Rare Earth is, I mean, if you go on their site, they've got, they keep 5 different species of the dwarf monitors.
I think we talked about this earlier, but I forgot. And our friend Dan just joined the podcast, and he asked, what are the cage requirements for Ackies? I know we talked about it. I know, but
that's fine. We can touch on it. Yeah, no problem. for my adults, I keep them in a 4 foot long by 2 feet deep by 3 foot tall, and that's for a pair. They have it's plenty of room for that. I'd maybe add one more animal in that size. Anything bigger than that or more animals, I'd probably go to like 6 feet with those same dimensions. And I mean, you could probably keep alone in like a 36 long cage, something like that. But usually 4 foot's usually where I kind of stick to. We lose you again?
I just wanted to. No, you cut out for a second, but then it was just us processing it.
I was typing and then
he was typing. Yeah, no.
That's a bad combo.
We broke up a lot earlier. So
oh, really?
Yeah, it was
not great.
Oh, no.
It was a train wreck for a second. But
we
now
had like
good.
4 podcasts in a row with no technical difficulties. This is bound to happen soon.
I think it was I was in my bunker. I was in the reptile room. Maybe that's the reason why. I don't know. Technology.
I wonder if that's the most used room in a house for snake rooms. I feel like the garage is where a lot of people keep theirs.
Your wife gets her way.
Yeah, right. We hit a point where we have a 3-bedroom house, and we have 2 kids. So we have our master bedroom, and then the kids each have their room, and then after that, it's Texas. We don't have basements, which is highly frustrating. I grew up in the Midwest, so I'm just used to having a basement where you're like, wow, we have an extra 2,000 square feet below our house we can use for random stuff, and build a big reptile.
See, I'm from the South. No, it's so weird. Like, I'm from the South. That's not. It's like, why do you need that? But we're moving to Philly, which has a basement. And
just wait.
But it's so when we were looking at
it doesn't even count.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, butthead. You took my sentence. When we were looking for apartments and you look at the square footage, it would say like 900 square feet. I'm like, there's no way this 3-floor row house is only 900 square feet. But you realize they don't count the basements in the square footage. And I don't get it. It's a room. Like it counts.
It doesn't. I don't know why they don't count it, but it's awesome that they have them. I'm so jealous.
But that's then doesn't it flood or like when the snow melts? Doesn't it flood?
No, I mean they might get damp a little bit, but we're like up in Wisconsin where it's wintertime. It's people use their basements. They make rec rooms out of them, so you have bars downstairs in the basement, and
Would you be scared to keep snakes in the basement?
I would not. No, I would definitely have a room built down there for sure. And they're all heated. You can finish them, so you have drywall, you've got drop ceilings.
Ours is finished, which is good. It has like tile. Our laundry room's in the basement, so we've been debating when we move whether to put the snakes.
It just depends on if it stays nice and warm or if it's really cool, much cooler.
True.
I like to just spec things out.
We don't know how it'll be. But the thing is, we're moving in the summer, so we have to decide now.
Hot as balls everywhere.
It's weirdly enough, it's like the reverse. They're actually cooler in the summertime and like warmer in the wintertime.
Really?
So, yeah. So if you're running ambient, that was my experience in Wisconsin, because we always be like, let's go to the basement. It's nice and cool. And then during the wintertime, if there's heat in the house, it's insulated from the ground, usually, from everything, all the snow and everything, it's usually warmer during the wintertime.
So that might
with added heat.
So then the basement, maybe that's also a thing that was weird to me about the North, that y'all heat shit from the ground. In the South, our shit's from the ceiling. Like,
that is weird. Yeah,
I'd never seen that. And even in
so the cold air drops down and then the warm air rises up.
Like, we get it. You can go stand under the vent and like feel it, and it feels amazing. But then when you go to the North, it's just on your feet. Like, fuck that.
Or you saw one of those old like radiator type heaters, and you were like, "What the fuck is that?"
No, I know what a radiator is. I just didn't think we still had it. I thought that was old news by now.
No, man.
I didn't think people still use radiators.
They still got them.
Still hanging in there.
They still got them. Right. A lot of old houses.
God, the North is so different.
One of my friends, do you guys know Chad Fuchsdale? He does a lot of clearbreds and corn snakes and so on. He breeds, he's got a lot of animals. He's been breeding corns for a very long time, but it's weird. I don't know how he sells a ton of animals. Like, he produces a lot of great animals, but he just does not market himself at all, like zero marketing.
Those people
I know, seriously. Yeah. He's one of I met him back in college, and one of my college roommates went to high school with him. Like, you got to meet Chad. And like, you got to meet Brett. And all of a sudden, one night at a bar, we ran into each other, and we're like, oh my God. And we just sat in a corner and just geeked out over snakes this is back in 95 or something like that, and there wasn't a whole lot, like, there wasn't a lot of internet. Yeah, thanks.
95.
Fuck you. You're only 2 years older than me. So
How old are you in 95?
I was 2 and you were 4. Stop
Okay.
acting like you're so much older
No,
than
I
me.
know.
I was 20.
I was more fucking
What?
with
I was a sophomore in college.
20 and I was 4. No, I wasn't. I was 2.
Yeah.
You were 4. Shit, I was only 2.
Yeah, we didn't have internet. We didn't have. I mean, we had like. I remember being like freshman year in like college. I would like get on like go to the computer lab and you'd pull up a page and you're like, oh wow, there's snakes on here, and you'd look at someone's price list and it would just take like 45 minutes to download like a page, basically come down. And yeah, it's definitely kids are spoiled. I tell you.
Hey, I grew up in the time of AOL. I know the like I can't even make it, but that sound. Hey, we know the struggle.
the little man running.
The little yellow
Yeah,
man.
that's right. I forgot about
When your mom would be on the phone at the same time you're trying to be on the internet and you have to.
Yeah.
I know that struggle.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. So yeah, it was interesting. So he keeps his room in the basement, and so he's got a great reptile room down there that he built and framed it in, and he does all his clearbreds down there. So yeah, it's a great place if you have a room for it and you can do it right. It's definitely why not, take advantage of it.
Yeah,
I would definitely do it. I would not be in my garage.
Awesome. So now I guess people are probably like, you just went off for like 15 minutes about basements, but
Wow.
Yeah, sorry.
We need to get something out of
It's
this
a jealousy.
podcast too. It
that's
helped us.
yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
like we're doing this for us. Asking
Right.
questions.
For us and for
Exactly.
people out there. So
Yeah.
now
You guys, you don't want
better.
Ackies, you want a basement. That's
Yeah.
that's exactly it. Save your money, buy a house with a basement. Don't buy Ackies.
But if you get the basement, then maybe someday down the line you can get your Ackies.
Then you can get a black throat. Right, exactly.
Then you can get your croc monitor.
Right.
It's
Right,
Pennsylvania.
exactly.
I can get whatever I want, I think. So,
That is true. Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome.
no rules, just right.
no,
You get to get
there's
them.
rules. We don't do things with legs. You know this.
Yeah, it's someday.
I feel like an Ackie seems to be like the least upkeep, somewhere between an Ackie or a crested gecko, or it doesn't seem like much upkeep as far as keeping and feeding.
Yeah, the cresteds are super easy. I mean, there's all you do is mix their powdered food together. Yeah, and you don't need heat. I mean, it doesn't get. I did cresteds and leachianas for a while too. The giant geckos are cool if you're ever looking for something with 4 legs, like the big New Caledonians, like the giants. Those things they're awesome. They're really cool, and they're just like crested geckos, but they're bigger and like a lot more bigger.
They eat dubias, and I'm a puss, so that's the only reason why I wouldn't get them.
Yeah, but you could also skip the dubia thing and just do like the crested gecko diet, and then do rodents for them too. Like they'll
Oh,
learn
really?
to take things. They'll learn to take things for sure. Not a lot, but
Baby
some,
corn snakes or something.
they might.
Yeah.
That's true. That's why you need a blackhead, right?
Yeah, I mean that's why we have a little king
Hey,
snake.
Let's talk
Well-
about blackhead. Yay. Oh my
So
god,
what
I
do you wanna
still
ask?
remember when we found your Instagram and we were going through it and just like marveling over.
We're like, this is everything that we like.
You're like, oh my god, this
You're
guy
only
has
four-
all
you're
the
only
things
4
we
hours
want.
away. You're only 4
not
hours
even
away. Come
4.
visit.
It's only
That's
it's
true.
only 3.5.
3 hours, about 3.5. Yeah,
3
not
on a
too
good
bad.
day.
Yeah, which in Texas is
Except
Texas traffic.
if you heard our bad luck last time we went to Austin. I don't know.
We
I
went
did
to
not.
go see the bats, and it was like apparently the only cold
That's
night where the
true.
bats didn't.
Yeah, we
But-
stood in 32-degree weather for an hour and a half,
Ooh.
which is
Yeah, that's
like
terrible.
never
That's-
happens in Texas.
No, not at all. Were the bats even back at that point, or was it just like a freak?
They
day?
were under
didn't
there.
come
We
back
could-
until the spring.
Well, it
We
was
could
it was
hear them.
unseasonably cold.
Yeah, when did we
so-
go? In like
For
March,
sure.
February, or
March or April?
no, it wasn't April. I think it was February or March.
We could hear them,
So,
but
yeah,
those little bastards
they were
didn't wanna
there.
fly.
but like 2 came out maybe, and it was so disappointing.
Really bad. I was like, we're gonna go
Yeah.
millions of bats. It's gonna be
Like
amazing.
he talked
Yeah.
it up so
Right.
much. Like we called the little hotline, trying to make sure, like all this shit, nothing.
Right. It's cool. It is slightly underwhelming, I will say, even on like a good day. I mean, it's fun to go down to, but it's even if you're in the wrong spot. If you're on the bridge, it's not bad, but it's kind of. I mean, we've taken some friends and they've been like, "Oh, great, cool, yeah, that's amazing."
Oh,
We
It's
were-
like- it was,
Like,
maybe
I
you
don't
did see it
fuck
all.
around.
I don't know.
We were
No,
in
it's pretty.
the
It is.
guano
It's neat,
drop
but it's
zone.
not. Oh, were you? So you're not okay.
Yeah, we were under
We
the
were
bridge.
under the bridge.
You go down by the bridge. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can see it pretty good. But we're chasing like little two kids around and stuff too, so it's not that fun either at the same time when you're doing that. But they'll come out. But I mean, you can see them fairly well, but at the same time, it is kind of hard to see them. I think it takes the right night too. Like if it's like kind of a clear night, so you can see them better. If it's like a little more overcast, they just kind of blend in a little bit. But it is kind of cool if they're there though, and they come back every year. But it is pretty cool.
All right, so we got sidetracked again.
I know.
Blackheads.
Yes, blackheads and Womas. Should we hit those both up?
Yeah. I don't even know what
I'm-
questions are. I just like them. Like
I could tell you my experience with them if that helps. I have more experience with Womas than blackheads. I originally back in like 2000, I picked up a pair of Womas, and then a friend gave me a pair of the breed as well too. So I had like a really nice male from Rare Earth back in the day. I mean, he was gorgeous and a pretty good looking female, but back then there wasn't a lot to pick from. So I was pretty stoked to have like a really nice male. So I bred those guys, and it was breeding was just like any other python for the most part. I'll have them kind of do the winter drops and then introduce them during the winter. They bred. I kind of had some issues with the eggs, but they did hatch out. As far as personality with those guys, I mean, they're cool. We lose you again. I got the little happy face just popped up.
oh.
They're all right. The little happy face popped up. That usually means bad. Personality wise, they're cool. They're just kind of like we were talking about earlier. They're just kind of like the Australian king snake, pretty much. I mean, they're so different. Their heads are just like little bullets, basically. They have good personalities. They have a super strong feeding response. I mean, they hit hard. I got bit like a week ago just by surprise, and it definitely was slightly unpleasant for the most part. It also startled me. I didn't see it coming. So if they bite on, they hold on pretty well, but they have a great personality. A lot of people producing some really nice ones right now too. I've seen a few clutches come out this year, really nice crisp bands, and I think that's people are starting to get more interested in them again. Where I think people should hopefully start selectively breeding, getting some nice orange colors, nice clean bands on them, and that's kind of my goal. I got a pair from Justin Julander, and I mean I couldn't be happier. I mean they're spectacular. They're beautiful. The bright orange bellies on them, really nice orange bands. So fingers crossed they're hoping they breed this year for me. So hopefully they go, this next coming year for me and get some eggs, and we'll see what happens. If not, definitely the following year they should go.
So you would know more than I would, but I heard that like back in the day when they first came in the country, like that was the like crown jewel of snakes was the Woma. And now I feel like there's not enough people appreciating them.
Yeah, I think at the same time the blackheads came in at the same time too, which were I think just bigger and more difficult to breed. So they were. I mean, I when I had mine, I was selling them for like $1,500 a baby, which was awesome. So that was pretty. Although I had like a nice clutch and I produced like 4 of them. I have like 9 eggs or something because just had some trouble with the eggs. But I think that the fact that the babies eat really easy, like you can start the babies, they're just they feed almost like on the first offering. Where the blackheads were a lot different. They had bigger eggs, feel like smaller clutches, number of eggs. And they're difficult to start. So I think that kind of threw it off a little bit, where it really kept the price of the blackheads up higher, and that the Womas were, people were figuring them out and they're easy to start. And they breed when they're young too. I mean, you can breed them within like 3 years compared to the blackheads.
So did you buy yours as babies or did you buy them as juveniles?
I bought mine as, I'm trying to think when that was a long time ago. I got them as juveniles, so they were started. Yeah, I'm trying to go back into memory banks up here. They were juveniles. Yeah, I did not buy those as babies. The ones I got from Justin this year are babies, and they're probably just coming up on 3 years, and they're a good 4 feet already, and they're eating medium rats.
How long do you think it usually takes for them to get to maturity?
I'd say anything probably after 3 years, I would start looking at breeding them. So for the Womas, I've heard definitely more than that for the blackheads. I just have one female blackhead now. I found her for sale on Craigslist of all places for like $900, like 3 miles from my house. And I was like, okay, I can't let her pass. So I had some Ackies I was holding back. I sold those, and I just went and met this guy in a parking lot and did the old parking lot trade, and got her, and she's awesome. She was produced by Don Meeker. She's really pretty. She's got nice orange bands on her, and nice blackhead and everything. So she's really pretty. So that's become my experience with the blackheads, but they are compared to the Womas, they are smart animals. I mean, it's amazing. Like she'll go in her tub. I keep her like in a 36-foot or 36-inch long tub right now. She'll curl around the back of the tub and then come up and just like kind of size you up and like watch what you're doing for the most part. Where the other ones just kind of, they kind of look at you a little bit, but there's something else going on in the blackheads for sure. I mean, they're kind of like a big bull snake for the most part, or a big indigo. I mean, I kind of equate them to look like an indigo for the most part.
So they're much more visual.
They are. I mean, she'll come up and it's amazing. The first time when I got her, I put her in her tub and just kind of watched her a little bit, and she literally just turned around and was just like, whoop. And then they just like key in on you. I mean, I've heard like retics do that as well too. I don't keep those at all, but and I'm sure some of the bigger Australian stuff they also do. But compared to the Womas are just looking for food all the time, pretty much. Excuse me. Now, they just eat. That's all they want to do. So a little different personality wise is between those two.
Do you know if your blackhead's Eastern or Western?
I believe. I thought I knew, but I'm not quite too sure. Actually, I think she's mixed. I'm pretty sure. I think she was produced from an Eastern, and the father was mixed. So I think she's a mixed bloodline for that. Mm-hmm. So I'll probably, I was kind of thinking about this yesterday. If I want to eventually try to get a male and breed them, or just keep her as a pet, kind of deal.
Do it.
Keep it as a pet or breed them.
Breed them.
Yeah. We need a big
Are you?
We need more.
Are you cognizant of? Because I've heard that people are really worried about getting them larger. They say that they breed skinny as far as blackheads go. So do you feed lightly, or have you heard that?
I feed her way less than my Womas, that's for sure. And she's growing fast too. I mean, she's taken off. She's taken down, like, she's a yearling, and she's already taken down just below small rats, somewhere around there. And she just did that for the first time. So she was taking like rat crawlers, I guess, for a while. Now I just moved up to one size. And of course, I pushed her into a shed right away. So I'm pretty much feeding her like every 14 days at this point, being after a year. And that's kind of watching her. If she seems like she wants a little bit more or something a little skinnier, then I'll feed her another one. If not, I'll just kind of wait and see. But she definitely doesn't. They're just driven as the Womas from my understanding, from what I'm seeing out of her compared to my pair of Womas. And again, it's just one female for sample size. But I'll pull out the tub and she'll just kind of be there and ready to come out and kind of explore more so than just looking for food. The Womas open it up and they're just they're looking right away for food.
So, I mean, we should probably, for us, we want to talk about blackheads, but we should probably go back and talk about how to breed Womas for everyone else.
As far as the breeding goes, I just I started to cool them down. Just like in the typical, like up north, we'd always kind of say we'd do Thanksgiving and then kind of run it through February or beginning of February. So I just kind of started doing like dropping the temps a little bit. And then I think just the outside pressure, like we were talking about earlier, the environment, they just feel it. I mean, it gets dark out at 4 o'clock up in I lived in Chicago for a long time too. So I lived in Wisconsin, then moved to Chicago for 15 years. We've been in Texas for 6 years. So, prior to this last 6 years, we had the Midwest kind of helping us with their winters, helping us breed up there. And so once it starts getting dark out and it starts cooling down so much, I mean, your house it's just chillier and stuff. So I think that really kind of helped put them in the cycle. Just in general to them, and they locked up instantly, and they bred a lot. She fed pretty much the whole time too, while she was gravid, up into the point where she really started to get gravid. And she would do the belly roll, she'd roll over and stick her belly straight up in the air and everything, which is always pretty cool to see. I mean, like, it'd be like 2/3 of her belly sticking up underneath her basket. So that's always pretty cool to see.
So do you keep a basking spot?
I do, yeah. I keep basking spots for all my animals. I mean, I could probably get away with it in summer here, but being out in the garage, I'm concerned about, if it gets too drafty out there, it definitely won't be warm enough. And I run an HVAC heater out there, so I just kind of manipulate the vent for how warm I want the room to kind of get. But I do run basking spots for all my animals.
And are you doing that via heat tape or a bulb?
Yep. For the Womas, I have heat panels in their cages. They're in like 40-inch long by 2 foot by 18 or by 12 inches high. So I'm keeping my Womas in, and the blackhead's in the tub right now. So she's in a 36-inch long tub. So she has belly heat for that one. And so I'm just running the thermostat or a rheostat for those guys.
What are you running it at?
So, and she's going to go in a bigger 88 degrees.
Okay.
So I keep those guys about 88 on the warm side, and the cooler side probably drops down to, and that's, I've got a couple of animals that are in there. So it maybe, during the summertime, I guess I'm right between like 86 to 88 degrees. So if I feel like the room's kind of starting to get a little bit warm, like this time of year, I'll drop it down to 86 just because I know the rest of the ambience coming up there. So I don't want to make it too hot when it's kicking on. But to be honest, I'm sure my heat probably doesn't run that often throughout the day. I'm sure it's shutting off probably more than it's on actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's going to go into a much bigger cage when she gets a little bigger, which will probably be by the end of this year.
Awesome.
And I'll probably pick up maybe some AP cages. I just should probably order them now. I love them. They're great. They just take a really long time to get here.
Yeah, order them now. 6 months, whatever.
Yeah, they'll be here. I mean, they are awesome. I mean, my cages I have for my inlands and my male Ruffy and my Angolans, I keep them in the 48-inch longs, and they're really, really solid cages. So I've been happy with those. JPM's down here. You guys have probably seen him at the show up there. They've got some nice cages too, and he's actually local to Austin, so I can just go pick up from his warehouse. I might scoop some up from him as well too on the next cages. A little bit a little bit less expensive, and they're way lighter too. They're all with like PVC fronts, so I might try to go that route for her when she gets bigger. And that's why I was trying to figure out if I want to get a male, but I might just even wait a year and then get a male, and kind of let her get up to a good size and let her get up really nice breeder size. And by the time he reaches up there, she should be ready as well. I've kind of started doing that a little bit more, just in my collection in general, trying to get females first, giving them a head start for like a year or two, and then getting a male whenever, find a nice mile, instead of trying to buy a pair right off the bat. And, especially if they're related, seems to work out. And kind of found over the years that if you're looking for an animal, you can always find one. I mean, they come available at some point.
Well, I was about to ask that. Is it hard to find blackheads out there?
A lot of people are producing them. I mean, there's a lot being produced right now. The price is still up there, and there's some, kind of like the Womas, people are starting to really selective breed them. They're not just producing blackheads. I mean, they're producing some really cool morphs of those guys now. Like the Xanthic stuff's really cool. And just some really nice, beautiful, just nice color bands on them. They're really nice, clean bands. And that's kind of usually what I look for between the Womas and the blackheads. I just want nice, clean, crisp bands. And I think they hold on to that better as adults. If they kind of zigzagged and kind of mushed up a little bit when they're younger, I think they develop that way when they get older.
Have you seen the albinos?
Yeah,
I heard they're in the UK.
You'd call them whiteheads, right? Is that what they're probably called then, or?
I don't know why that's funny.
Right, I don't either.
But it's funny.
Right. It's kind
of
it's
fucked up to have a blackhead with a whitehead.
Right, exactly. They're cool. I'm curious to see what they look like as adults. I don't know. I'm sure there's adults, aren't there? Were they produced from huts? Were they produced from albinos? Do you know?
I think do not know. I think
they're produced from huts.
Paul Harris who produced them, though. But who knows how they got to Europe?
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they look like for adults. It's kind of they look amazing as babies, which is like the complete opposite of like albino carpets. They're hard to tell what they actually are going to look like until they get older. They're just so just yellow, like they have no exactly. You can't really see the contrast and can't really see the patterns that well. But that thing, man, I was like, it's sharp. I've kind of, to be honest, I've gotten away from morphs in general. I don't think the only morphs I have are my ball pythons. We have a white blue-eyed leucistic male that I bought him for my 40th birthday. And that's kind of when I started getting back into snakes a little bit, like 3 years ago. I picked him up, and then I have a pinstripe Mojave female ball python. So just between those two, those are really my only two morphs. Everything else I have are all natural recurrent animals.
Well, you also have the most beautiful naturally occurring animal. As far as a blackhead, fuck off with Xanthic. Xanthic looks like dog shit compared to a regular blackhead. In my opinion.
I like Xanthic. I mean, I do like Xanthic animals in general, to be honest with you. I just, if I were to pick a morph, I think in general for different animals, that's always one I do. For some reason, the black and gray, like the little corn that you guys produce, man, that's cool. I think that's awesome.
See, I would understand if it was black and white, but it's usually muddy gray. At least blackhead. I don't love it in the blackheads.
Right. Totally get it. I get it. And I think, that is part of it too. I was able to, over the last couple of years, be able to put some animals together that don't need to have morphs, really, when it comes down to it. I mean, like the inlands on a good day, they're blue. I mean, they're like powder blue. It's cool. Their underlying scales are. And the rough scales are just, they're really cool animals in general too. I mean, they're just rockers, they're weird. I mean, you get one in your hands and you hold it, and the way it moves and the head structure on them is, and they're rough scales. I mean, they're neat. It's like, why? Hopefully there's nothing pops up. Hopefully no one breeds them to anything, and they just stay what they are because they're cool. And the Angolans, man, they're. I didn't think I'd like them as much, and then when I got one, I actually got an adult female in. My male's younger. They're awesome, dude. They're so cool.
I've heard so much about. I mean, people are really getting into them. As far as there's not too many people breeding them readily, but also people say how like interactive they are and much different than people kind of associate them with ball pythons, but
they look just like a ball python. I mean, they shattered, but they're kind of more like they're like that Burmese python that hits like 4 feet, and you're like, this is a cool snake, They just have like the good body weight to them, but they're not going to get like 12 or 14 feet and eat rabbits or whatever they're going to eat someday. They top off between like 4-6 range and stuff, and they're just they're impressive when you hold one. And like Terry Burrell was over, and he was always kind of saying Angolans, and he left. He's like, I gotta go find Angolans. So he started getting on the hunt for him and looking for him, but he was totally blown away with them as well too. He thought they're awesome.
Yeah.
What is it gonna take for blackheads to come down a little bit?
I think the babies need to start feeding easier, so these guys don't have to put all the time and effort in. They're trying to get the babies just to feed, that stress. I think it's going to be a few more years. I think they're going to. I mean, they seem to be up there still, and they've been here for a long time. So
very up there.
yeah, I know, they are for sure. And like I said, if I didn't have like a little trio of Ackies that I was holding back, and the guy was just randomly had one for like $900 around the corner for me, I probably wouldn't have one at this point either. But I was like, all right, I got to jump on it, and then I'm sure I'll get a male at some point. I was talking to Jim Sargent down with. You guys brought him up the other day. You saw him at the show at the Arlington show.
Is he Split Rock?
Really beautiful Split Rock. Thank you. Yeah, yes. I always want to say Slippery Rock. Yeah, Split Rock. I've been talking with him a little bit too, and he's like, "Yeah, I know, right?" He's like, "Come down, check him out," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's probably the worst idea for me to go down there."
You'd walk away with one.
Right. Exactly. I'm gonna run grab my other earbuds really quick. I think this one's running out of juice.
Oh no! Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I'll be right back. 1 second.
But I love his Swiss line.
I mean, that's why I was saying he would go see him and walk away. Like,
I
almost wanted to give the only $1,000 I had in my bank account to buy one.
Oh man!
Like, they were just so pretty.
Yeah.
But
and if I'm gonna do it, like, you're gonna do it right. Like, don't fuck around. Like. Get a really nice animal if you're gonna get.
Now he talked about how difficult they are to get feeding. So would you still want a baby blackhead, or would you?
Well, because any responsible breeder is gonna get them feeding first.
Yeah, but they could still be once they get here. They could still be So why don't we get like a yearling one? I'm saying this like we have any chance we're gonna
choosers,
get one. But there could still be yearling ones out there.
The ones we saw at NERBC were probably pretty close to yearlings.
Yeah, they were
pretty
decent size. Yeah,
it probably takes a year for you to find enough suitable homes for
all of them because they're so pricey. I doubt.
Well, yeah, and it's a very niche thing.
I doubt blackhead breeders are selling out immediately.
Well, but most people don't even know what the hell they are. That's the only issue is no one's out there, showing them off enough for people to get interested.
But people are breeding them. They're just not showing them off because he said he doesn't have a hard time finding.
I feel like it's just, I feel all the guys I know are not like social media guys. They're not guys who put their stuff out there.
Okay. Just by coincidence.
At least that's what I found in blackheads, at least.
Yeah, there's, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I was like, I hope these headphones work. Otherwise, I'm going to have a panic attack. I'm like, everything else is going wrong. There's a bunch of guys out there. I mean, Derek Roddy's got amazing stock. Don Meeker produces stuff. Split Rock produces really beautiful stuff in the States. Josh Hood, I mean, that dude, I feel like he's produced a ton of blackheads this year too. So people are producing them. I think it's just like that startup, and I don't know. It's interesting to see a market that does hold its place. It's great. It's nice to see. I'm hoping the rough scales do it eventually. It's so weird because everything gets compared to the ball python market, which is completely just became a money thing, and everything dropped out. But it's like it's not hard to breed ball pythons and get them out there. And if people try to recoup their money and stuff. So it's nice to see the blackhead market actually stay up. Hopefully it does. I mean, it'd be awesome if it does. And I think with people producing better and better animals, hopefully at that point it's just gonna there's just gonna be better animals and the market stays kind of where it's at, or if it does come down, it still does hold a nicer value up there too. Because it definitely keeps the guys who are breeding them producing nice animals and better animals too. Some people just start getting their hands on animals and they just breed them together just to breed them, and they don't really care what they turn out like. And it's cool when you're breeding species, you get straight blackheads, but when you can start producing nicer ones, it's get to it and do it.
Yeah. So now talking about rough scales, where are you with them, and kind of when did you get into them?
I got into him when I went over to Terry Burrell's house, who happened to live. Terry was in Austin here, which I didn't realize. So I ran into him somewhere. I forgot where. Maybe through Facebook or something random. Like, oh, weird, this dude's in Austin. All right, cool. So I went over to his house, and I was just like, I was blown away. I mean, he had diamonds and rhinos and black milks and rough scales and all kinds of cool stuff. And I was like, I've never held one. He's like, oh, let's bring out, here's my male. So he brings it out. I'm like, this thing's really cool. Leaving at that point, I didn't go home and say, I have to have those. I'm like, they're cool. They're neat. But they kind of stuck with me a little bit, And then another guy locally was selling a pair for like $1,500. He had to get some money to help for his mom's surgery, or I don't know, who knows what the story was. So Terry's like, I don't know him. Could you drive down to like Buda or wherever this is, get and buy them, and then basically ship them to me? Because he had then now moved out to South Carolina for like the summer or something like that. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So I went and got some money out and drove over there to Buda. Met this guy and got him. Everything was cool. I was like, I didn't get jacked, which I was kind of like, yeah, this seems a little like I don't know this guy either. We'll see how this goes. Got back to the house and I set him up, and I was like, and I had him for like, literally 24 hours. And then after that, I was like, I have to have some of these guys. These guys are cool, man. They're amazing. Their eyes are they're so cool. They're like slate gray eyes, and just really nice big heads on them and everything. They're really cool. So Terry, of course, like, kind of, we came across this guy selling an adult pair, and he's like, maybe he wants Ackies, because I was trading some Ackies at the time. So he messaged this guy, and the guy's like, actually, I would. And I was like, okay, well, let's see how serious he is. So I offered up a clutch of Ackies and some cash for him, and I got in the adult pair, and everything was going good until my female shed, and I could totally just see the hemipene shed out, and I was like, that's a male. So I went and I sexed her again, which, at this point now, when I get any animals in, I sex them right off the bat, because, it sucks to raise up some animals. And I didn't raise these up. They were adults. But at the same time, I was like, I put a good chunk of money in it and a whole clutch of Ackies and everything else, thinking like, all right, cool. If I can get them, settle them in. If they don't go this year, then hopefully next year we'll get a shot at it. Like, all I want is a shot. I'm not saying I'm going to breed them or going to be successful. I just want a chance. I want to try to see if I could breed them as well too, man. Because the thought of having a little clutch with a little rough scale head popping out, man, is just like, would be awesome. So that didn't work out very well. So I went and tracked down a female from David D up in Colorado, got her in, and she's awesome. And she's really, but she's small and she's young, and it's going to be years before she go. But they're awesome little babies. They're cool when they're small. Just even compared to the adults, they just look like miniature adults. And then a fellow contacted me that had kind of bad luck like I did. His male passed away. He's like, it never really thrived. Didn't have a whole lot of good luck in him, getting him growing up to size and stuff. So I have a lone female. Would you be interested in just taking her in on a breeding loan and see if you could breed her? Throw them to one of your males. And I was like, I would send you my males if you want, because you've been breeding all kinds of stuff for a lot longer than I have. And he's like, no, you know what? I'm trying to step back a little bit. I want you to take a shot at it and see what you can do. And, send me half the babies if it works out. So here we are. We've got an adult female, 2 adult males, and we'll see what happens. So the timing's right. We got them in the summer. Hopefully try to cycle them this winter. And I did a ton of research on them last year on breeding, and just read everything I possibly could and made charts and had it all lined up exactly what I was going to do until I figured out I had 2 males. And I was like heartbroken. I was like, dude, what? You gotta be kidding me, Like, and the guy I got him from was just he had these 2 snags. He doesn't have anything else to like back it up for other other place and stuff, so it was just kind of like, and he was cool. He gave me a little money back on a deal or whatever, which was fine. At the end of the day, I still had 2 cool rough scales, but I had 2 males, trying to find a lone female that was going to be breeder sizes. Yeah. Good luck. It's not happening, until I dumped into one and dumb luck found one, So, and then I can thank Chad Gray for that too, because he put a good word in for me and, reached out to this guy and said, hey, man, here's a couple lone males if you guys are looking to try to work something out. So that was really cool. Definitely appreciate that.
I mean, think about how many people have adult females in the country in general of rough scales.
I know, exactly. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm like, honored that this guy is trusting enough to send me, send her to me and let me try to work with her. So, like I said, I was like, I'll send you my males. I'll be more than happy. Like, I have a couple
Whatever
males.
Way.
See if you can do it, And he's like, no, just go for it, man. You got your males, but I'm stepping back a little bit. So I was like, all right, cool. Let's see what we can do.
Now, are you changing the room and the cycle around at all for them? Or
for them, I'm gonna do a night drop. So I've heard you breed them just like chondros. Basically reading up how to breed green tree pythons. So I'm going to drop the temps a little bit, and just start cooling them down come fall, basically. Just try to breed them just like the chondros, which I've never done before either. So, but I've read a lot, so we'll see if that gets me in the right direction. So I don't know, man. It's just, I've had fairly good luck breeding animals in the past, just by kind of letting them do it themselves, basically, and not overcomplicate things. Keep them well, get them fed. I'm kind of feed cycling them right now too, where I'm keeping a maintained diet, but I'm definitely going to step that up and start feeding them heavier in the fall, right? Then let them clear out and start to cool them down, and we'll see. And maybe I'm totally wrong, and it totally doesn't work, and to adjust something for next year, but I don't know. Just gotta try.
It's part of the fun, right?
Right. Exactly. I mean, to be honest with you, like pretty much everything I've tried to breed, I was able to breed in the past, one way or another, just by kind of letting them do it and just kind of, trying to get as many tips as possible, just reading up on everything I possibly can and talking to people and just trying to get little insights and then also knowing it works for me. Cause obviously what people in different states and different locations may not work for me. It's like, I guess that's, except that I had a hard time with the hognose, trying to get like a good answer what to do with those guys. Cause so many people do different things with them, like my buddy Chad that he doesn't do anything. He just chilled. He cycle feeds them basically. And he just feeds really light and then feeds them really heavy and then puts them together. And other people are like, oh, you got to cycle them and, you got to temperature cycle them and so on. So I just, see what these guys can do. And they got good size to them and hopefully they like each other and we'll see. Yeah. It could be a good year. The Angolans are up to size and the Angolans are hopefully up to size. My males are young for both of those guys, but it could be a fun year.
But this is your year where everything's kind of coming to age at the same time.
It is. It completely is 100%. Yeah, the Womas, the ball pythons, the inlands, the Angolans, and the rough scales. I found a big wine fridge. Some guy, actually randomly in my neighborhood, Craigslist once again coming through, found a big wine fridge that held like 88 bottles of wine or something like that. Like I don't know who has 88 bottles of wine, but this guy felt the need to have a big refrigerator and it stopped working on him. So I'm like, I'll take it. I'm like, I'm going to turn that into the incubator and hopefully get some bigger boxes and hopefully fill those up next year and have some luck. And they all should incubate about the same temperature, so that should be good. So hopefully, just get one of those big suckers filled.
Either be a very overwhelming year or a very disappointing year. So.
Yeah, totally. I'm all set for disappointing, which would be fine. Still have the animals in the end as long as everybody comes out of it healthy. Or if it does work out, I mean, even if one or two go, if one goes, it'd be amazing. Whichever ones it is, they'll probably be the ball pythons.
Or you'll breed all of them besides the ball pythons.
Yeah, which would be all right with that too. That'd be cool too. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. Fingers crossed on it all. So we'll see. And then plus Ackies.
Well, those are
another 30 Ackies. Yeah, another 30 Ackies next summer too. So it could get busy. So yeah, that whole room needs to be. I have to readjust everything and then re-Tetris the room, figure out where to put stuff. I've got some ideas how I want to do it and get some more racks for the babies and kind of get that set up. Although I don't want to go buy a bunch of racks and also nappies. Or buy racks, get eggs, or get eggs, buy racks and don't hatch them, and then be stuck with a bunch of baby racks again or something like that. So yeah, we'll see how it all works out. It'll be interesting. So being the first year.
Yeah, you always got to be optimistic though. Prepare. So
I am. Yeah, I had a rough time with the hog nose. Those things they gave me a hard time.
Oh, I got slugs out of mine this year. I
got slugs in the first clutch. Actually, they looked good, and they failed. And then the female double clutch, and then she passed away. So I lost my female, which was a double het snow anaconda female, bred to an anaconda. What was it? Het snow male, albino anaconda het snow male. So I ended up with like 5 eggs. Everything looked good, and I ended up hatching out. So actually did hatch out like an anaconda snow and stuff. But I produced like a super anaconda snow, which was solid white, animal.
Good odds. Very good odds.
Yeah, full term in the eggs and didn't make it. So yeah, and I was just like, so I cut the egg open and I was like, well, what do you know? Like, awesome. 1 in 32 chance of having this little one come out. But I guess so it wasn't for him, her, but it was yeah. So after that whole thing, I'm like, all right. And then my male, after losing that, then the female passed away, which is really sucked. I felt terrible about that happening. And then my female rough meat becomes a male. So like that whole little downturn there, I was just like, ugh, kicking the gut.
Well, I have heard the same thing that you kind of mentioned with Ackies, is that the females in hognose are very prolific, but kind of burn out rather quickly, and they don't seem to have a big breeding life or lifespan in general.
Right, which I don't doubt. I mean, those hognose, the way that they're the clutches, I mean, it's amazing how many eggs come out of those little things. I mean, they are cool though. I mean, like how small the males are compared to the females, and then the female just drops like like 20 eggs, and you're like, oh my god, this is crazy. But I mean, if they're doing that and they're doing it at so young too, but I think there's an issue with feeding them strictly rodents and also raising them too fast. I think that's also an issue with those guys. I feel like the Ackies would just do it naturally. I don't know if the hognose would breed that young in the wild.
Yeah, it's kind of people have taken a ball python attitude with them more so than others, because there's morphs and there's stuff to be had, so people want to grow them up.
And you want to grow them up, and and I'm guilty of it.
I do the same.
Yeah, exactly. Like totally did the same thing, and but I've talked to some other breeders that have gone through, and they're like, that's just what they do. It's unfortunate it happens to them and stuff. I'm like, yeah, that sucks. So no more of those guys. And plus they're native to Texas, so I had to deal with the whole permit issues and stuff like that.
Don't tell
Wait, what?
Well, we're moving in 2 weeks. Did we tell you that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, no, it's weird. So you can go and buy them, right, with no permits at all, and you can keep them. And I forgot what the number is. It's like up to 6 or something like that. It's either 6 or 25. There's like the white list and the black list. There's like this whole different little thing of which different species you can keep and how many of them. So you don't need permits to do all that. But if you want to sell one, you need a permit to sell them in the state. Yeah. So
we got slugs. So
yeah, so which is great, So and it's not hard. You just have to go and you fill out some paperwork, and they send you a permit. Then at the end of the year, like in August, you need a log, like a record of what you were keeping and what you produced and what you sold and what you have left. So my female passed away, and I sold the babies. I kept records of who I sold them to, and so now I just have to turn that back into the state. But I just didn't want to deal with that in general. I mean, to be honest with you, like there's a lot. I mean, it's same with like gray bands and that kind of stuff. Like I, wanted to get gray bands, and I'm like, I just don't want to deal with the permits and that kind of spotlight on it. So I'll go Australia. Legally born in the United States, Australian reptiles.
Yeah, they were just legal or illegal 30 years ago. You don't have to be at point of contact.
Right. Yeah. Have you read what book is I was just reading that one? Stolen World at all? Have you read that?
Yeah.
Multiple times.
And Lizard.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I've got them both. Yeah,
he'll listen to it like he listens to it on audiobook like it's the first time. He's still so into it. I don't get it. He could probably hasn't memorized at this point.
If you like stuff like that, check out Snake Charmer. It's about Lewinsky.
Sorry about that. No, I'm back. I did not fall down. The iPad fell. That was not me. Trying to get it. And what was that one? Sorry,
Snake Charmer. It's about a herpetologist Joe Slowinski. He got bitten by a snake on 9/11. So he was in Borneo or Burma rather, or Myanmar, Burma.
Okay.
Whatever it was called at the time, and they couldn't save him because it was 9/11. He ended up dying.
So he couldn't reach the embassy or anything.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But it's cool, like, and he's
It's not cool.
Well, no, the whole thing, because he's a herpetologist and he's really like
yeah, but it's not cool because even more than he got bit because of his assistant, right? Because of his assistant fucked up.
So there's Lycodon in Burma that look exactly like a many-banded crate.
Okay.
So his assistant was like, "Oh yeah, I checked this out. It's a Lycodon." So he went into the bag and he picked it up, and it was a crate, and
it bit him, and he died.
And that was it.
But he kept a journal up until he couldn't write anymore, and then tried to enunciate as much as he could. He basically journaled and kept track of his whole death, which is pretty cool. Well, interesting.
What a terrible way to go.
Yeah, like there's just multiple things against him. His assistant fucking up. It was 9/11. He's in freaking Burma. Yeah. Like he was just, yeah.
And he probably did like a total rookie mistake where he probably just doesn't usually just reach into a bag, without actually really identifying and everything. That's crazy. That's yuck. I don't want that. Yeah, no venomous for me. I stay away from venomous. I'm too slow. Obviously, I get bit by Womas and everything else that I'm not. Yeah, I can't deal with the venomous stuff. Plus, having kids too. It's just I don't know. It's the right place and time for it and stuff, but I don't know. My luck, I'll get bit and I'll just like lose a finger or something like that, and I'll be that guy.
I just figure there's people for that. It doesn't have to be me.
Yeah, we don't need to be that person.
Yeah, right, exactly. So try to stay away from that. But yeah, I'll check that book out. Yeah, that's Lizard King and Stolen World. Been reading those guys. But yeah, going back to like what you're saying, it's kind of interesting. You go back and read those, and it's like that wasn't that long ago that they're starting to bring the stuff into the country and produce it. So.
Which I think it's so cool that we still have some of those guys around. I want to know all the stories, but I want Tom Crutchfield to tell me everything without any bullshit. Just tell me the truth. Like
you probably need a few hours.
Probably need a week or two.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, that whole industry, especially back in the day, back then. It's crazy, and which is, it's interesting how it's all changed from imports to captive breeding, which is awesome.
And if you have an Australian animal, appreciate that shit because someone really worked hard to break the law to get them to you. So
right.
Whether that's bad or good, I don't know.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right, exactly.
But it's a miracle that we have them here.
Yeah, mine are from California and Utah. In the States here.
Okay, I wanted to ask a question 10
minutes ago.
I know you were
hitting me.
Because that's our sign for when I want to ask something. And you know that. And you've been ignoring it for the past 10 minutes. I've been giving you the damn signal.
Go.
And you just keep talking. Well, now it doesn't even sound like, doesn't make sense because we're way off the topic. But I was going to ask, how bad is it that I look at a rough-scaled and a Brettles and I see the same thing?
One of those bumpy.
But like when I look at pictures, I was just Googling while we were talking, I was like, those look like the same fucking snake to me. And is that like noob level bad or like a novice could get those? I don't know. How bad is it? Is what I'm asking.
They're pretty different. Their eyes are very close to each other. I will give you that. Like if you look at their eyes, like the same blue eyes, they both kind of have that slate gray eye. So that's for sure.
But to me, like the when you look down the thing, that looks the same to me. Ugh.
The rough scales are way more like a rock chondro. They look just like a green tree python, basically. Like they have the same structure. They move kind of a lot like one. They really, when you hold one in your hand, you're like, it looks like a chondro. It's weird. And their heads look a lot more like them. Bredli I get they get those big wedge heads on them, and they get more reds and yellows and blacks and that kind of stuff. And then where the rough scales are really dark brown and kind of like a lighter butterscotch color that's kind of mixed into it.
And I feel like Bredli are very Bredli are very heavy bodied and seem mostly terrestrial when rough scales seem to be more.
Look at those two pictures that are up on the screen now.
No,
those look like the same fucking snake.
But killed scales. It's very, very.
I mean,
different.
I understand that, but when you're looking at a picture, you can't see keeled
And then
scales
this
in a
is
picture.
more of a green tree, rather, or you would know more than I would. I mean, as far as behavior wise,
I'm not saying that. I'm saying pictures.
I've had both, and the rough scales do act more like a chondro, I think, than the Bredli are more like a carpet python. They kind of they'll climb and do the same things, but they like to hide box on the ground. My guys hide up they're in their hide boxes all the time. They're elevated. For the rough scales, I don't know if I can agree with you.
I knew it was a
You should
stupid
get one of
comment,
each. You guys should buy one of each.
and they look the same.
it's blasphemy for anyone who has any respect for Morelia to say a rough scales and red line back and
I'm
forth.
not saying they are the same snake by any means. I know if I held one in my hand, I could tell the difference.
Well, rough scales have
You
actually
would definitely tell the difference.
Yeah.
But when I'm just looking at these two pictures I have up on Google right now,
right.
they look very similar.
Rough scales have probably the smallest range of any python, especially in Morelia by far, but they're condensed too. They thought that they were extinct until a few individuals were found.
Doesn't fucking matter when I'm looking at Google pictures. I'm telling you, I'm not taking into factor anything else about them other than the pictures. Oh, never mind. I take it back. Rewind.
Well, everyone else hates you. Like any Morelia person's like
Jackie Crowell agreed with me. So tough titties.
One thing that's kind of cool about the rough scales, someone suggested to use like the reed stacks that I use for the Ackies, like those layers, like the shelvings. I use those for the rough scales too, and they use them for thermoregulating, and they get themselves way wedged in there. And someone was saying it's kind of like what they do in the wild too, with like getting in between the rock cliffs and that they're in. I wish I could figure out a way to do them like vertically on the back of the wall so they could wedge themselves in like a shelf like that, but. They use those things a lot, which was kind of interesting. Like I put them in and they immediately all went to one. Cool.
And do you keep perches in there or do you find that suffices?
I do. I've got perches. So I've got like driftwood that goes across the cage. And then I actually took Reptile Basics, their little hide boxes, and turned it upside down and screwed it to the ceiling. And then I use a wing nut and a bolt to basically hold it in place. So there's just like a little opening up on the ceiling basically so they can crawl up and get like right in there. And they love it. They sit up there in like the top of their cages all the time. And they just like hang their heads out. And if they're hungry, they'll come out and kind of hang out and they'll do that like chondro perch basically where they'll hang, kind of like on an S curve coming down and just waiting for food to come by. So
awesome.
they're never on the ground. Like they're always up for sure.
And
I've got some shelves. Go ahead.
It seems like you keep a lot of your stuff in 4-foot cages. So these aren't that big. Rough scales, I'm not sure exactly how big an adult is, but someone may put him into a tub or squeeze him into a tub. But
which I've seen people do. Yeah, I've heard people do it, and I've heard people breed them successfully that way too, which is interesting. I kind of hit a point where I go back and forth on the tubs a lot. I have tubs and I use tubs and they work great. Personally, for me, I just sometimes like to not have them in tubs. I feel guilty about it sometimes. And so I use them for raising animals a lot. I don't really use it for adults. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a Tetris trying to move things around and kind of really see what I'm doing. And that's really why I kind of cut back on getting new animals and different species. I mean, I look at stuff all the time. I got the fauna like 3 times a day or Facebook groups and the classifieds. I'm like, oh, I could get that. And that would be cool. Let me add that. I mean, I can rifle off like 15 different species right now that I want to get, but I'm really, really trying hard not to, just because I know that once everybody grows out, I want to have them in like 4-foot cages at least.
And when they start multiplying, then you're going to need more room for that.
Yeah, exactly. with not having a whole lot of room, no basement. It all goes back to not having a basement. So I kind of go back and forth on the tubs, but for those guys, they use. I mean, if you give the animals space, they use it. So even like the Angolans are all over the place, and the inlands, they're on all sides of the cages, and they thermally out with it. And the tubs are great. I mean, they like, quiet, warm places with food and shelter and water, and it works great for them too. It's just sometimes when some bigger animals dealing with some of these guys, I want to give them more room so I can see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's even interesting the fact that you're putting different things in there and seeing different kinds of behaviors, rather than just putting newspaper down with a hide in there. And I think there's
I
merit
use Aspen for pretty much everybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I switched over. Newspaper it gets dirty fast for me, and it gets kind of pushed around and disheveled. And then if it gets pushed around and they go to the bathroom in there and it's not on the paper, then it's just even more of a mess. So I just started using Aspen, and it seems to work good for me. So I give them a good, like a 2-inch base on everybody's cage. And it's easy to spot clean. So, I go in there daily, spot cleaning, and I pull it out every week and a half, 2 weeks or something like that. And I just change out all the substrate. It's cheap enough to do, and it's clean and it's fresh, and they do use it, and they'll burrow through it and so on. But it's just more that having everything covered kind of thing. So, if it's not a huge messy bathroom break for them, it's easy to spot clean and kind of clean up that way. And the water bowls, I started doing the deli cups. So I went over the Home Depot and got the little PVC caps. They're 4 inches, and then got the deli cups to go in there. So those guys, I refill, every other day, and then I just take them out and just replace them and go with all fresh ones and recycle the old ones.
Mm-hmm.
So that works pretty good. So that's pretty much the way I set up all my guys. And they all have the basking spots, and they all feed well. And my problem is I'm just trying not to overfeed. It's so easy to overfeed pythons. They want to eat. So it's just well, I haven't fed you for a week. I should feed you, So I'm really trying to, especially this time of year, to cut back and not feed them as much as they really probably want to be fed. And I think once they get in that routine of not eating that much, they get pretty used to it, and it's not that crazy for them.
I think it's easy, especially if you have a couple ball pythons, to be these they're supposed to be the easiest snake to keep in the fucking world, but they don't want to eat. But you're this rough scale, this all those snakes will eat whenever the hell you want them to.
Yeah, my roughies were kind of weird. When I got them in, my male, the true male that was supposed to be a male, was on rats. So he was okay. He was cool on frozen, small rats or whatever. But my female was the one that was supposed to be female, was only on quail. So I was awesome. So I started trying to find people with quail and, locally and stuff like that. Luckily, I was able to find a source for some chicks. So I got some week-old chicks, I think they are, something like that. And it was funny because they were doing great on those and doing fine. And all of a sudden, the male, the true male guy, decided that he didn't want to have rats anymore. And then he switched to chicks. And the other one that was eating chicks switched to rats and had never ate frozen rats before. So I was and I didn't mix them up because the one has a white spot on him. And I'm always you used to be a female. So I got him pretty well pinpointed in. But it was weird. They just totally switched their preferences to now being one only eat chicks and the other one will eat frozen rats when it never used to do that. So
do you know
I
if
don't know.
rough scales as a species have a tendency towards fowl or quail or chicken?
I'm sure they probably eat whatever they can. I know that I think there's supposed to be some pretty good mammals that run around on the cliffs back there that they feed on, but I'm sure if birds are around, I'm sure they feed on them. I mean, they're built to kind of hang on cliffs and feed in that way. So I'm sure they take chicks with no problem. They love them, but most pythons do that. It's kind of funny. The Womas, and I'll actually feed some of the other python extra chicks or something like that. I'll feed those off as well. The Womas have taken them. The ball pythons have taken them. The Angolans have taken them. So yeah, I've never had anybody refuse a chick.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
they all love them, but I'm always freaked out about feeding them chicks because I don't want to get them stuck on them. After that one rough scale, the one rough scale that was stuck on them, who's now not stuck on them. But so yeah, I just it's experiment out of them. And another thing that was interesting going back to the chicken hearts lane is I used to feed the hog nose little pieces of chicken heart, and they would chow it down if they're tough eaters. If they didn't start very well, some of the babies, I'd just give them a little piece of chicken heart, and even the adults, I'd just give them a little quarter of one, and they would chow it down.
I may try it because this prick male that I have has taken tuna scenting for 3 years, or however long I freaking had him.
Really?
Yeah.
I used some of my hogs I have a hard time on. I just use a piece of salmon. So I actually just went we were making salmon for dinner. So I just sliced it into the size of a pinky. And it was funny. I put it in there and came back totally gone. And I just did that 3 times. And then I rubbed it on, sent to the pinky. And then it got him to switch over real easy. But this was also young. It was a hatchling. It was just coming into its own at that point, but it never switched back. But the salmon worked really well too.
He goes back and forth. The tuna is the only way I can ensure that he eats every time.
Really? It's a hognose, you said, or?
Yeah.
Well,
And I heard
unfortunately,
males are pains.
one person who lives in this apartment is disappointing and doesn't like seafood. So
nice.
we won't
I'm an
have salmon.
anti-pescatarian. Yeah.
Oh, are you nice? And yeah, tuna is like the worst kind too.
Well, we just keep
I
tuna
can
for
get-
the
that's
hog
the only
nuts.
one
We
I
don't
can
actually
do.
eat it.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about for the salmon. Like we'll never have salmon in the house because he doesn't eat it.
Right. Yeah, but being a non-fish eater, and if you have to open a can of salmon, like that smells like
Gross.
yeah, it's gross.
It's my snaky.
Tuna
I don't
doesn't
care.
smell good.
Yeah,
either.
it freaks me out. I mean, I eat fish, and I still a can of tuna when I open them. I was like, oh, that's weird.
But do you freeze the hearts or do you keep them in the fridge?
I freeze them so they come like in a fresh
Okay,
pack. So I basically get like the little snack packs, and I'll break because they'll come in
Little
like a
snack
tray.
packs.
Yeah,
Ew.
like
Ew.
like
That
the
must have
little
been before she was here. Yeah.
oh
We're
yeah,
talking about the
so-
snack packs.
Yeah,
No,
so
I
like
heard
the
you
little
talking about the
Ziplocs.
heart, but not snack.
They've got like the little half
Okay.
Ziploc bags, for snacks or whatever.
Okay.
When the hearts come in, you'll get like 24 of them or something like that in a pack. So it's like you don't want to just like freeze like a big chunk of them together. So I'll put like 5 in a little snack pack and then I just throw in the freezer and they freeze like individually that way. So then you can thaw out like 2 or 3 and like
And
right
not
now
do
the
the whole
Ackies
thing.
like yeah, exactly, and not have to like try to like chip them away or do anything. It makes it so much easier. It's like pinkies if you lay them flat and freeze them or something like that. Then they don't stick together as much.
Mm-hmm. I can
Okay.
imagine you can get a whole mass of chicken parts
Yeah,
and freeze
yeah.
them together.
Please stop. I'm willing to
Yeah.
give up my freezer to snake food, but I am not willing to give up my refrigerator. So I'm glad you freeze the chicken hearts.
Yes, yeah, and they only go through like I only feed them. That lasts like 2-3 months, so they stick around for a while.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's easy. They're not that freaky once you do it.
And
a
it's
couple
like
times,
chicken,
it's
so it's not like it has a weird tinge, a weird smell to it, or anything.
it's like
weird.
it's like a muscle, and it's not like all like gloppy and stuff. Like it's actually like kind of like a clean piece of meat. And I'm not like a super uber.
But it's not
Type of
meat.
guy,
It's a
like-
heart.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's like if you cook a chicken breast and you're using like touch like the raw stuff like that, it's not that much of a difference really at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's a good
Like, cutting
alternate
through it and all stuff.
to nastier
I was
shit.
a little weirded out when I did it the first time. I will absolutely admit it was a little like kind of like I don't know, it was kind of weird. But then like after a while, you're like,
Yeah.
the difference between a chicken breast and a chicken heart is still the same thing.
For someone who deals with pinkies all the time, like I would rather fuck
Yeah,
with chicken
I mean,
hearts. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's all processed. It's all clean. And it's not like super fatty or anything like that. So
Yeah.
they kind of work out. It's just like it's actually really good, clean, lean meat for them. I'm not gonna eat them, but they can. So
I might-
Ew.
I know.
My dad, we used
Yeah.
to cook the little organ. You know that little organ bag that comes in the chickens?
No.
It
Inside
looks-
the chicken, you reach in and there's a little bag of organs.
What
Yeah,
kind
make
of
sure
You
you-
don't just
do you buy?
Yeah, it's like
Is
the
that-
neck, isn't it?
Where are you buying these chickens?
right. If you buy a chicken at the
Yeah.
store,
Well, I don't know. I guess the chickens do that too. I know turkeys do it. Like turkeys usually have like
Right,
packets.
for
There's like a little
Thanksgiving.
packet on the inside.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. But when you buy chickens, you're buying like
there's
rotisserie
chickens as
chicken.
well.
I'm not.
No, I buy it raw, and then my dad used to put all the organs in the pan with the
I've
potatoes.
never bought a
He used
raw
to eat
chicken
all
in
the
my life.
organs.
I've never it comes like a turkey and the ball. shape.
Yeah, it's a little chicken. Man.
Never-
It's just a small turkey.
Nope. When you is that
Yeah.
for like holidays or you just eat it regular?
Okay, I guess I was the only one who ate roasted chicken. I thought
But
that
we
was a
would just buy
normal-
the little rotisserie chickens at the
Yeah, we had time apparently. Put it in the oven for an hour. Wait till it popped. You never did that. Okay, well, all right. Good.
No, we'd either buy
It's all
chicken breast,
nice and
chicken
brown and
thigh. Like
crispy.
yeah, no, I didn't know that they sell those all the time.
I need to get a raw chicken. Now. Yeah, you put it in the oven, dude. Holy shit!
Like a whole chicken, right?
Yeah.
No,
I haven't bought a whole chicken in a long time. We used to have a smoker, so we'd get them and put them on the smoker and stuff like that. Like when we were up in Chicago, and I don't remember if they ever did have the little insides in there or not. Maybe I just like freaked out and kind of threw them away.
Yeah, like I don't think you can really tell their organs. You're just like, throw that.
Yeah, you're like,
away.
why
I
are
don't
you
know.
bagged separately in this cavity? It's
Yeah.
okay.
I don't
And
know.
on that note,
there's a bunch of weird stuff that people used to eat that doesn't need to be eaten anymore. Liver and onions, that kind of stuff. Like my parents were like, we went out for liver and onions. I'm like, that's why.
Yeah.
It's gross.
I still fight with my parents about chitlins. I think chitlins are the most disgusting food on this planet.
Oh, yeah, that's the shitter pipe of a fucking pig or whatever.
And especially when my mom like cleans them, and the whole house reeks. I just don't. Why does anyone want to go through that? Like, fuck that. They're slimy insides. But then I love oysters. Man. Oysters are also slimy, but you don't have to clean oysters. I don't know. Okay.
No. Oysters.
All right.
Wait, I wanted to ask why.
Over time, by the way.
Yeah, I know. This would be the last question. So, is it purposeful, or is there any connection to the fact that everything that you keep is from Australia, besides the Angolans, of course?
There really isn't. I was thinking about that the other day too. I just was kind of I'm drawn to Australian stuff. And people are in general, I think, and not in general, but people that keep Australian stuff. It seems to be the thing. People that like Australian animals just really towards keeping animals from Australia, which I know sounds really basic, but I don't know. They're just I'm intrigued by them. Maybe it's because you just can't get them, as readily, and they're not exported. But they also have some really cool stuff, so I don't know. I was thinking about that driving home today. Like, why do I keep just like Australian stuff? And then if you think about it, man, carpet pythons are really cool. Rough scales are great. The Ackies are cool. The dwarf monitors. There's just a lot of good, just cool skinks from there. I mean, they've got a lot of neat stuff,
And I think it's cool that you can see one at a show and be like, I know that's not imported. Like I know it's captive bred. I know everything's straight.
Exactly. And someone had to, raise some animals and breed them at some point to keep those things going. And I'm drawn to Australia. The whole idea of going there some days just sounds amazing too. And going around and looking for this kind of stuff just sounds cool. But I watched your little herp video from when you guys were going for copperheads and stuff, and kind of made me think about just what we all have here in the United States, which is really pretty cool when you stop and think about it. That we have some really, really, really cool stuff domestically, and need to start getting out looking for that stuff. Because I was kind of thinking, like, why do I keep Australian stuff? And I was like, there's a lot of cool stuff that we have here that
in
sure
Texas.
People wish they could have as well too.
Forget the
Texas,
U.S.
Yeah, in Texas alone.
In Texas.
Right, exactly. But I mean, we have like Gila monsters. I mean, how cool is that? And all the different king snakes and pine snakes and indigos, and just like we got some cool stuff here too. But I don't know. I don't know why just Australian stuff just kind of pulled me to it. But it seems like people that are into Australian stuff just kind of run with it, I think, and then you just kind of get interested in it and you just kind of keep going with it.
I think it's also you get into the niche and you get into the people that all keep Australian stuff, and it's like much more of a community base than a lot of the others.
That's very true. I mean, that's so true, and it's interesting that there are so many little categories of our hobby, which is cool. Like I keep a reef tank too, and it's funny. Those are just reef people, and they're just all random reef people. And there's just as much drama in that stuff as there is in reptiles too, which is funny. But within reptiles, it's like people like really geek out and form these little communities for their own species. I mean, it's like all the short tail and blood python guys. There's all the clubra guys, and within the clubra guys, and it's funny how they just like find these little niches and stuff. And I'm sure you're right about the Australian stuff. It's people kind of get into it, and then you find other people that keep it, and throughout the years people are able to start selectively breeding them for nicer animals and getting them out to the population so people can buy them and start keeping them as well too, because they really do make great pets. Pretty much they're fun to keep, they're interesting, they're super hardy animals. I mean, there's really none of them are finicky to keep. They're all really pretty bulletproof.
Yeah, I think that's especially true in the carpet area,
Yeah, exactly. Although that means I'll just probably have some problem with them later.
Hey, you're super lucky, okay? You keep talking about how well you've been with your breeding. I think you're pretty lucky.
Well, come down to Austin, check them out. You guys are always welcome.
We have 2 more weeks here, but
when are you?
And I'll be away for one of them.
So we're moving August 5th.
Oh, okay, nice.
So very soon.
We should have met you before when we went
months
to Austin.
ago.
I know exactly. I know. Well, I should have came up to Carpet Fest. We had something going on that weekend, and then last year we were out of town for it as well too. So never had a chance to come up for those either and stuff like that. Too. So otherwise, you guys could have came over and toured everything. Toured the 6x8 room. It's a little crowded with 3.
Well, we just
not
need
gonna lie.
We just need more blackheads in our physical space to hold.
To play with. Yeah.
Yeah. They are cool, man. They're different. I mean, they are just super smart animals, and just the way they move, and just immediately as soon as I got her home, I'm like, wow, this is so different than anything else I keep currently, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
True. Okay, for real, last question and off topic.
Okay.
What is your favorite pizza topping?
Definitely not pineapple. We just had this discussion the other day too. We just had this long discussion at the pool the other day too, because someone's like, let's get pineapple. I'm like,
fuck that.
Do that. Singly, I just probably Italian sausage. You know, I'm more of like, I like to go traditional, so I always go Italian sausage, mushroom, black olives, and onions. It's usually like my go-to.
Onions? That's not traditional.
In Chicago it is. Up north it is. It's like a Chicago topping. Yeah, like we got pizza last night. It was mushrooms. It's pretty solid.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a judgment.
I like pizza too. Why? I'm definitely multiple toppings for the most part. I like to add. It's hard because my wife doesn't really eat onions, and she doesn't eat meat, and my kids eat cheese. So I'm always kind of like, my last couple of years have been all.
You need like
all screwed up.
1/4 of a pizza can be the way you want it.
Can I just get a quarter? Meat lovers, please. Something like that. So yeah, I usually I try to combo it up when I have a chance to.
I've heard different things about people from Chicago. They say that deep dish is bullshit. Some people like deep dish. Some
I thought that's what Chicago is.
To me, fuck off with that. That's a pie.
But that's because you're from New York. You can't talk.
I agree with you. So
I know.
I'm from Wisconsin. I like thin crust. I like a cracker crust thin crust.
You put
pizza.
Cheese curds on that bitch?
Oh, cheese curds.
No, those go down. We fry those and eat those for appetizers.
Yes, I love cheese curds so much.
Dip them in ranch.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, then Chicago. I agree. I'm not into the Chicago style pizza.
But that's
something that can't be beat.
Like Chicago is he's trying to say that it's not universally Chicago.
Well, I don't think people. I think Chicago has good pizza outside of deep dish, from what
they do. But Chicago style is like lasagna, basically. I mean, it's like they have everything on the bottom, and they cover the top of it with sauce, and it's just like
that sounds delicious. Who doesn't love lasagna?
You have like if I'm having pizza, I want to have more than one piece of pizza. Like that stuff is so filling that you have like one, you're like, I'm good. It's like a brick. Probably pizza's like having multiple pieces. Yeah, exactly. I mean, East Coast, I am happy that everyone's going with the bigger foldable pizzas these days. That's for sure. That's good style.
Well, that's turning into our question, apparently.
James Lewis on the chat, he was like, he badgered me. But he's like, see, my question turned into great conversations. And yes, it does.
Yeah.
Because I will go on to judge people who like pineapple in the bathroom.
Yeah. No pineapple, no broccoli. Keep
broccoli. People put broccoli on their pizza.
If you order like a vegetarian, like a veggie pizza, sometimes broccoli something on there. It's terrible.
Sounds like
a travesty. It's a travesty.
Mellow mushroom bullshit.
I love mellow
that'd
mushroom.
Be like
with spinach,
tofu or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
No, that good stuff.
Not hating on Austin. It's cool. There's no bats. I heard.
Shut up. Okay, Brett, if you want people to find you, where can they reach you?
Instagram. So I'm at Fieldstone_Herpetoculture. Otherwise, Facebook, just under Brett Bender. I used to have a Facebook page, but then it just got, I don't know. Facebook's difficult to deal with, and they wanted to make it into a business. So I'm like, I'm just a hobbyist, so I just kind of deleted that whole thing. So yeah, personal account on Facebook. I'm on there. You can message me, or on Instagram at Fieldstone_Herpetoculture. I just changed it to Herpetoculture. I thought it sounded professional.
What was it before?
Herps. Got too many herps jokes.
Yeah.
From then, that's the other thing with Facebook too. When I had my other page, it was a bunch of like that's what I like about Instagram is like you can really filter down what you like, what you want to see. And so I've got like one that's just basically straight reptiles, and the other one that I've got my personal account too. But Facebook, it's like I post something like a snake, and then 10 people would be like, "Ew, gross, snake for real," and like that kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, enough of that Facebook general friend populace can stay off of there. So that's why I'm usually on Instagram a lot more for that reason.
No, yeah, it totally makes sense. And I think that there's not enough snake people doing it. Like, it's pictures of snakes. Like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's great. My feed is like all reptiles on that page, and it's like you can just you can just keep it straight and streamline that way.
And then if you have a Facebook business page, your post reaches like 1.5 people because Facebook wants you to buy ads. So
that's exactly. That was the other part too. I'm like, why am I doing this? It makes no sense.
It pisses me off every day.
Exactly. So I'm usually on Facebook. I just jump on some of the forums and stuff like that, or the groups, I guess they're called. I'm old school. I call them forums. The groups, and I'm parts of some of those and get bored with some of them and delete them and kind of do that. So I'm around, or email. Easy enough.
Okay. Well, yes. If anyone wants to find us on the social media, catch us on Instagram under Port City Pythons, Facebook Port City Pythons, our website portcitypythons.com, where we will continuously post snakes once they decide to eat for us. Why are y'all laughing?
Well, I talked about it earlier, but I also need to sort out the pictures and the codes.
He has about 10,000 pictures on his phone.
Oh, fuck. Because
it's a lot of work.
Yeah, if you guys see one listing for a corn snake, corn snakes don't stay still. I take like 20 pictures at least of each one, and then I need to say, is this number, and I need to sort them. It's a whole fucking thing. Trust me.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
They're annoying.
Yeah.
If you want to email us, theportcitypythons@gmail.com. We also, even though we have snakes posted on the website, we also have stuff posted on Morph Market or Fauna Classifieds. Either one, choose your fancy.
Or just hit me up.
But it gets difficult when people just message us individually. We've been talking about that. Like, we say just message us, but it gets too difficult when people message us on Instagram wanting to buy it, because then we're trying to track it on.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's easier if they just go to the website, because it then handles it all. But yeah, when people message us, it's a whole separate thing we have to deal with. So
yeah, I have a paper and pen though.
Okay, I was trying to do the outro well, and
we are really not doing good at being succinct.
Oh my God. Okay, thank you guys for watching. This was a great show. I'm sorry I was late. I will probably be late again next week.
You only missed the connectivity issues.
Yeah, we had to sort that out. Sorry about that. That was unsettling.
And what's weird is that it was totally fine once you went where you are now.
Yeah, I should probably just start off in here, but I don't have cages behind me.
We tried.
Cool stuff to like show off and be like, here's the Akkie's cage. They live right behind me. That kind of stuff, So, yes. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you all for watching us and for your continued support. We already did our outro, even though I feel like we should go into it right now.
Catch us next week for the person that I will not say.
Because if we say your name, you will not show up. Because that's
and fact. I really want this person to show up.
I don't even remember who it is. Don't say this. Oh, is it? Oh,
I think so, but I could be forgetting. I don't know. Okay, bye, guys.
That's fucked up.
Bye.
Bye.